Hello everyone, and welcome to Ludohistory. And for the last time for 2022, to God of War Ragnarok. We have some
Yeah.
incredible guests today. As usual, Red and Blue are joining me, and
So,
I'm
Hello, hello.
delighted to welcome Dr. Declan Taggart, who will introduce more a bit later, but welcome to the stream.
Thanks very much. It's incredibly nice to be here. I completely
Yeah.
forgot I was a doctor as well, so it's really nice to remind me. I've been one for 6 years, and I'm just not used to people saying it out loud.
Amazing.
But
Awesome. Quick housekeeping thing before we switch over to the game. As I mentioned, this is the last guest appearance for God of War Ragnarok in 2022, but I am so delighted to confirm that 2023 is going to have a brand new lineup of guests. God of War
Let's go.
Ragnarok is going to continue. I got all the confirmations in for the first three guests, so I'm so excited. More details will be coming out on that. But also, before we get into it, there's currently a poll up just to ask where have you seen the most Norse mythology stuff, just to get a sense of where people are at, so we can tailor our conversation to make sure we're not talking too esoteric and arcane, because that is my specialty. So
Yeah.
do consider filling that out, but otherwise, we're going to hop right into it, have a phenomenal conversation.
yeah.
I'm voting for I can read Old Norse because I can't understand it, but I can see that there are letters on the page.
That's
so,
fair.
I mean,
Amazing. I think right now the I can read Old Norse is me and you.
and
Which
one
is-
of us is lying.
Exactly.
I guess I'm going to be the only person who votes for translations.
I'm
I
actually
will
surprised
vote.
about that.
Oh, of course it won't let me vote. Blue already voted and we're on the same account. Curses.
You can read Old Norse now, Red. Congratulations.
Yay. Eat it, Duolingo.
Yay! Also, to everyone who is following, subscribing, and otherwise supporting the channel, super duper appreciate it. I will not have time to thank all of you individually, but there will be credits at the end, and you will all be thanked there. But know that we see it, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Also, as we go, if you do have any questions, do make sure you highlight those using the channel plan command, just so that we can make sure that we're seeing them to be able to answer those questions or ramble incoherently about those questions properly.
Oh, that's going to be happening anyway.
I mean, yes, but we may as well pretend that we are professionals who interact with chat. Anyway, as we load into the game here, Declan, do you want to introduce yourself and what you do? Because it is very cool, and there are very many things. Oh, Declan, we cannot hear you. We may have had immediate technical difficulties.
Classic.
completely my fault. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, as Adam just told everybody, including me, I'm a doctor of Old Norse mythology and religion, basically. I got my PhD in Aberdeen, I guess it was 6 years ago now, something like that. And I've been working at universities all over Europe really since then. Now I'm just working at the University of Iceland, looking at morality and Old Norse gods.
Ooh.
And yeah, the most exciting thing happening in my life right now, apart from this incredible stream, is that in a week's time I've got a game coming out myself.
Yep.
Ooh.
Yeah,
To follow that link in chat to Choice of the Viking in order to wishlist that game.
yeah. There's a demo there right now. It's about the settlement of Iceland. Choose your own adventure,
Oh.
and yeah, it's taken over my life recently. So
Amazing.
yeah, I hope anybody plays it, enjoys it.
Yeah.
Actually,
Fiercely cool.
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, so this
go
is, you said that this is settlement period, so basically modeling yourself off the family sagas for that
Yeah.
one?
Ah,
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's based on Erbygja saga specifically,
Yes.
although I take from everywhere.
Perfect. I mean, Erbygja is my favorite saga because you can't love it. There are ghosts, and they solve the ghosts by taking them to court, and it is the most Icelandic thing.
Oh, God.
Huge spoilers for Choice of the Viking. Happening right here on stream.
Just read Old Norse, and then you too can game the system.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, you were talking about it on the previous stream, I think, like about the difference between like knowing about Old Norse mythology and legends and then playing this game.
Yeah.
And it kind of gives you this dramatic irony kind of happening the whole time. Like you know what's going to happen in the future, even though Odin does. I love that.
Well,
That's
yeah.
really fun.
hopefully, no, it depends on how they write
That's
the
right.
game is the
We'll have to
question.
figure out
Like,
shit, too.
Yeah,
this
yeah,
could be
yeah.
dramatic irony, or it could be a whole lot of planting with no payoff, as it were.
We'll see. If we get as far as I hope to today, chat, we will see both of those options.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. But first, we should probably update folks on where we are in the game. We are in Járnvíðir, or Ironwood, hanging out with Angerboda, breaking into her grandmother's house, the house of the troll
Maybe
woman,
there's a way up on the
Grilla.
other side, but I won't be able to.
Hooray.
Hooray! Grilla is weird, cause, seasonally appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you watched Hilda, there's a whole episode about her and the Yule lad, and everybody should watch Hilda. Anyway, it's extremely cute.
Yes.
What's Hilda? Sorry.
Oh, it's this animated cartoon on Netflix. It got 2 seasons and a movie. It was based on a comic, and it's heavily derived from Icelandic folklore and like folktales and stuff. And I didn't realize how much until I read through the saga of Grettir, and I was like, this is where they got the ghost wrestling from.
I know
Yes.
It's just so cute. It's got this really cozy vibe. Like it's intensely cottagecore. And there's just it's very urban fantasy. It's like there's regular humans live regular lives, but there are also trolls. There are tiny elves that are invisible to everybody who hasn't filled out the appropriate paperwork to be able to see them. There's just a whole bunch of stuff. And I think the elves are a joke about how every Icelandic saga is mostly legal battles, because the elves will not stop doing paperwork and talking about things as if they are legal disclaimers. And they also have just a whole episode where the Yule lads turn up and are explicitly trying to avoid being the naughtiest Yule lad to be eaten by Grilla. And then I believe the solution is they end up giving Grilla a whole bunch of soup and kind of just sending her on her way.
Huh.
So-
Wait. Huh.
What?
Nice.
She's
Well-
hungry.
But also, she's their mother.
Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean she's not going to eat them.
Fair,
Ryla's still out.
I suppose.
Yeah, I've written that down. I'm going to watch that. That sounds
Yes.
great.
It's
that.
amazing. It's
It's
so
so
cute.
cute. I started rewatching it
Might
the other day
keep
because
the
I
animals
needed
down.
background noise when I worked, and
already in the
I got
wall.
too into it.
gotta
I fully
turn.
stopped making progress on anything.
Hey, we know my future.
So have you talked about Grilla before in stream? I've only saw part of the last stream.
We were going to, and then we didn't quite get that far. So why don't we do the full introduction to who it is? Because 'tis the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about it from an Old Norse point of view. Like, I think there's just one name in an obscure semi-poem from the 13th century, basically, or something.
Yeah, I
So-
think she's in like one of the like Thulur that Snorri
Yeah.
creates in the Prose Edda, and her
Yeah,
name
exactly.
shows up, and then there's nothing until the 17th century. So you know,
Love to see it.
a classic.
That's my favorite
should-
kind of character, where you get a name and no context, and then nothing, and then in the 1700s somebody makes something up, and you're like, great, thank you.
Or someone writes something down, and we're just like, is this made up, or is this old,
Yeah.
or is it both?
Yeah.
Oh, sometimes they're definitely made up. They're just like so confused about who people are. It's amusing.
Yup.
Yeah.
And then there was
Just
that
trying to fill in the
actual, like,
blanks.
what was that movement that started in like the 1800s? Because that's when you started getting this sort of comparative mythology, like these figures are all actually the same guy, and it's like, ooh, that's how you
Yeah.
get all these things where it's like, there's an etymology that's commonly accepted for this name that's completely apocryphal, but everyone knows about it because some guy in the 1800s wrote it down. Sorry.
Yay, comparative linguistics and Volkish movements. We love them. We don't love them.
It's such a cool concept. There's something there at the etymology, but the problem is they extend it way too far.
I think if anybody's doing like I don't know, term papers or whatever here, and they're big fans of Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is great and it's got so much information, but just
Yeah.
be really scared of that kind of comparative 18th, 19th century
Yeah.
scholarship. It might ruin your paper.
Yeah,
No.
that's the stuff where they will say things with confidence that comes from nowhere. Like
Yeah.
all that there is like, hey, there's an etymological root that's shared between these two gods from these two very distinct Indo-European cultures, and they have like one element of their domains and pantheons in common. So we think there was probably at some point a god that maybe was the originator of both of them. I mean, like, that's half of trying to figure out where the Greek gods came from is like, all right, which of these many cultures gonna spat this guy out? But then they start going like, there's a Proto-Indo-European god that we know stuff about. And it's like, no, you don't. You're drawing cladograms and extrapolating from them.
I guess he's talked about Tyr, the god Tyr, on a previous stream because he's such a huge character in this game.
Yeah.
But for me, that's number one. Like, comparative linguistics is creating an entire world of mythology that might not exist.
Good, you're with me on this one.
That's the problem. There are a lot of gods whose name just means God, and if you took this approach, it would be like they're all the same guy. It's like, gosh, I wonder what motive there might be to try and wrangle monotheism out of the entire Indo-European cultural pantheon.
Yeah, but I mean, another great example of this is actually in your research, right? Because every media ever says Thor is the god of thunder because his name means thunder.
Did you?
But as you've argued, maybe not.
Never mind.
Ooh.
I did spend an entire book, on just writing about that one very small thing.
It's such a good book. It is.
Oh, thanks so much.
No, it's legitimately like one of the books. Whenever people ask about Thor, like, start here,
Can't hide forever.
and then you realize everything else
You can't
is
just leave it here to die.
looks way more questionable after you started here, and we'll realize how much we all hate ourselves by studying this.
No.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the Thor thing's interesting because this name, obviously, it literally means thunder, or at least like really loud noise. If you go far enough back, you know.
Perfect.
But I mean, by the time you get a Thor in Iceland, there's no lightning or thunder really in Iceland to speak of. Maybe connected with volcanoes, but there's not that
I
many
actually don't know how to
volcanic eruptions either, you know?
Yeah.
So you don't get this, you get a dirty lightning phenomenon in Iceland that doesn't happen very often. But if you have a god of thunder, what use is he in a place that doesn't have thunder, you know? So there's a sense that maybe it gets changed there. I do this thing when I give presentations about Thor. I put all the text that we have where thunder gets mentioned next to Thor on one side of the screen,
Heck yeah.
and then I just scroll down all the other text we have where Thor gets mentioned and there's no thunder. And there's almost none from Iceland. So
Yeah.
So
That's
sorry,
the
just so I'm
deal.
understanding, this is specifically Thor's version in Iceland. That
it seems like it dies out. So there's a sense of Germanic mythology, religion moving up through Germany into Scandinavia and then to Iceland.
That's it.
I don't know how historically accurate that is, but that's the way we tend to look at it, at least.
Yeah.
And so in Germany, you have loads and loads, lots and lots of thunderstorms. It's huge, especially in summer. So it makes sense that thunder being an important part of mythology. And then that kind of dies out, actually. You don't have very much thunder lightning in Norway either. There's a bit more in Sweden.
right.
And there's a bit more, there are more links to thunder and lightning with Thor in Sweden than there are further west. So it kind of just makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's not-
So the idea is that
Think they're better
Thor
off with you.
originated in one of these areas as like a thunder deity, but as he sort of spread, the thunder association got lost as it became less relevant in the
Yeah.
areas where. Okay, yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what happens. He's not really calling him a god of thunder by the time he gets to Iceland is kind of a misnomer. I think.
Yeah. I
Very cool.
wholeheartedly agree. I think it's super duper well argued, and also right because I'm trying to think of the examples now. We have like Adam of Bremen, and we have that
Yeah.
one dude in Olaf Saga Tryggvasonar,
sorry.
who like says he prays to Thor during storms at sea,
Oh.
She can't know.
and that's
The skinny guy.
Yeah.
Actually makes sense.
I never remember his name, but it's like he's Christian, but he prays to Thor during storms at sea because he's being inclusive like that.
I'm trying to remember where I read this. I think because of course, it's easy to forget like, hey, these are gods. People prayed to them for specific things and under specific circumstances. If you're just looking at them from the story perspective, that kind of gets lost. But I remember, I think with Thor, it was like if there was a plague, Thor was the person you asked to make it go away. And I don't remember where I got that from.
Thor and plagues. There is a really cool runic inscription, which is found in a manuscript in the British Library, and I can't remember the exact inscription, but it seems like it's an example of where Thor is kind of called on in the runes to banish a giant, a Jotun,
Right.
or some kind of demon that is causing illness to a person. And that's pretty cool. It uses this word bless, but it uses the word bless in a really aggressive way.
Wow.
Thor's gonna bless him real hard.
You're gonna bless him right upside the head.
I love
Yeah.
that.
God, that's so
So, yeah.
fun.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
There is a question in chat from Nico Alvarez. Do we have any tips on when we're writing, doing this research? How the heck do we like condense all this information that we could talk about for? How long has this stream been going for? You know,
Talk about it for literally ever.
literally forever.
Yeah.
How do we condense that into like a single project? Because I mean,
have
for
to
How
close the
Thor
door.
Lost His Thunder, right? You cover what, merely 1,000 years of literary material.
Was that all?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of focus a lot on 300 years, I guess. Or no, I guess not. It goes up into the sagas, so maybe 600. But yeah, no, point taken. I would say research questions, if just from a professor, teacher, lecturer kind of point of view.
Yeah.
Figure out your research questions, make them really precise, and then just answer the question. Don't let yourself. Don't ask questions that are too
Heavier
wide.
than it looks.
Don't keep going off on tangents. Like, note down the tangent for later, but turn it into its own thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there are infinite fractalized rabbit holes down every single one of these things, and you can't chase down every single one of them.
Nope.
You gotta. It helps to have kind of literally a thesis statement. What specifically are you trying to unpack, and what point are you trying to make?
Because we're not going to stop.
And then you can start basically picking and choosing what you want to cover based on how it relates to the core point you're trying to make.
No.
And if you run into something that's not related to that, you can just be like, all right, that's for later, or this is a cool thing, but we're not going to go into it. Which is, we're pretty bad about keeping the tangents to a minimum in our videos, but it helps to have like a central axis to sort of be like, this is the thing that we're going to be dealing with, and everything else is for later.
She'll have no use for this.
I would say discovery writing from like a literary point of view is maybe not great if you want to keep your word count down.
Yeah.
Like you want to plan. You want to be like, this paragraph's going to be about this paragraph's going to be about this. That mission statement you're talking about is a good idea.
Yeah. Also, sorry, what's happening in the game? Is this how we're
Yeah.
getting all of Loki's quote-unquote children?
So yeah, we just created Jörmungandr
That's right. Look at me.
because it's Loki and Angarboda, and their kids are Fenrir, Jörmungandr, and Hel. And so we just created Jörmungandr by Grilla stole someone's soul.
We put a giant soul in a snake, right?
And we put a giant soul inside a snake.
Neat.
Yes.
100% accurate. That's exactly the way they tell the story originally.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You see, when a mommy giant and a daddy giant love each other very much, they find a dead snake.
Rod of prayer.
Yep. And so
Is that
now
what you get?
Is that
we
Fenrir?
don't
Yeah.
we don't get Fenrir yet. It's unclear how they're going to create Fenrir, as far as I played in the game. But yeah, this is Grilla. She's a Christmas spirit.
My house.
Right, we're trying. So the goal is that we are going to try and beat up her jar that she uses to capture souls in this game. In Icelandic folklore, it's where she cooks small children who have been naughty around Christmas.
Yeah, I love that. That folklore is so good. She just
It's
likes
so
to eat
good.
children. Yeah.
It just be like that. I mean, her and like everyone else that Jon Árnason like ever collected stories about.
This smacks a little bit
Over
of
there.
like,
Gotta destroy that cauldron.
it's like the equivalent of the Shadow Realm. Like, no, she doesn't eat them. She just distills out their souls and leaves them mindless husks forever.
Exactly.
It's way more kosher.
Yeah. If you go to like different places in Iceland, it's pretty cool because you can see where the Yule lads are supposed to live and so on.
Yeah, they're so
man.
fun.
Yeah.
Important question:
Oh,
who's your favorite Yule lad?
Here in
I don't know the Yule lads well enough. I've read about them. I never
I'll look up a
remembered
list.
anything. Yeah, let's look up the list. It's a good idea.
Just a second.
Because this does mean, right, if Grilla is Angarboda's grandmother, then that means fairly definitively that her father must be one of the Yule lads, right? That's how that works.
I'm sure
Okay.
you make such a
The Icelandic
fine
Yule. Oh, cool. Guide to
Yule
Iceland.is
protect
has
all
the
that
Icelandic Yule lads and Grilla, Iceland's Christmas trolls. Okay. Stop advertising
These are
holiday
great.
deals, please. Okay, Grilla, yeah. Cool. Give me the list.
Why
Give me the
won't
goss,
you
the
leave me
rundown.
alone?
Okay.
I'm gonna say my favorite is Skirgalmer.
Yes.
The Skyr Gobbler, just because he likes yogurt.
I mean, me too.
yes.
Me
Yeah.
too.
I'm with him on that one.
Not to be confused with the guy who likes milk a lot.
No.
Get away.
Exactly. They're completely unrelated. And don't mix the two up.
These guys have really grotesque illustrations in this article.
Oh, they're real gross in like every depiction I've ever seen of them.
There is
like
one
I-
guy that just steals sweeties.
Yeah.
Like candy. That's amazing. So
Yup.
good.
I'm ashamed we're even related, girl.
Who's the guy who eats candles? He doesn't eat them. Sorry, Curtis.
Oh,
Candle stealer.
yeah.
The Yule Lands are like the weirdest boy band ever.
And
What a
there's
squad.
enough of them. They could be one of those K-pop bands with like 20 members.
Yeah, they swap in when one of the Yule lads goes for mandatory military service.
Oh God.
You won't destroy it.
I feel like the weirdest one is Doorway Sniffer.
Yeah, he just hangs out. What are we
You know
supposed
what? This seems to me like somebody vague posting about their like large extended family coming over and being a nuisance during the holidays. Like, oh, this is the one who always licks the bowl, and this is the one who always wants to lick the spoon. It's like, what's wrong with these people getting snacks?
Why are you so bad?
I love whoever in chat mentioned Krampus.
Krampus.
Yeah.
Krampus is so great too. Yeah. Just Germanic, scary Christmas things. With it.
Exactly.
Hashtag just Christmas things. Oh, Door Slammer? Okay, yeah, that tears it. This was written by some boomer who didn't like having the 13 nieces over. It's like, let me tell you the tale of the 13 terrible people and their gross mom showing up and ruining everyone's fun.
Shoot those before they hit you. It should dispel her magic.
This is an incredible fight.
Yeah, because we're not
I
trying to
love what's
hurt
happening.
her. We're not trying to
Yeah.
hurt her. We're just trying to hurt her paw, because if she doesn't have a jar in which to cook small children, then she'll stop cooking small children, or something.
You can tell this is a classic God of War fight because we're still on the most mechanical of gameplay levels destroying pottery.
Hey.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Somebody in the chat also mentions Hymir, which is a pretty good reference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Thor fighting this giant called Hymir just to get a big cauldron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone's in it for the snacks.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, it's either snacks or booze. Or both.
Or both.
Writing the game, I had to do a lot of extra research in areas I'm not familiar with, like Viking
Yeah.
ships, Viking weapons, Viking footwear, you know, stuff that doesn't come up normally when you're just interested in myths, basically.
Yeah.
And what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I came across Christmas beliefs, stuff about like feasting at Yule, basically.
Amazing.
And I had no idea that it was kind of illegal not to get really, really drunk at Christmas.
Incredible.
That's
Yeah.
so interesting because I know. I mean, in Saga of Grettir, one of the
Did you know?
characters gets kind of karmically punished
saved
for
you.
not fasting during Yule, and gets killed by a ghost.
Where was that? Sorry.
That Saga of Grettir.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, it's well post-Christianization, and I think there's a theory that it might have been sort of written as kind of like a swan song for the old pagan heroes.
I think every saga's been proposed to be that, though.
I know, it's a cold read, I'm just saying. She seems really upset that we broke her pot.
Yeah. How she can have those tasty, tasty small children, and we just prevented that.
It's probably a housewarming gift.
Yeah.
No one will ever remember you.
How else is she supposed to yell at? Or
Not even
actually, her lazy
Loki.
husband just does not show up in this game.
Just be a
But
forgotten
it would be very
chapter in
funny if there was
history.
another one who has been just watching the whole fight, who's just her
We'll be
husband, who's
busy
too lazy to go help.
His father.
Wow, this. Sorry, I'm watching it a
I
few
see
seconds
you
behind.
again.
The stuff about like no one will remember you. You'll be a forgotten
wish you
chapter in
died
his
with your
story. Is
parents.
like, well, that's kind of accurate.
Yeah,
She's a bit of a
Yeah.
footnote, but like she is very cool.
she is very
But-
cool.
In modern, so I think Angerboda is one of the
Sure, it's all right.
Old Norse figures that kind of gets most reinvented these days.
Yeah.
Like, it's a really good podcast, I think, Angerbo the Rising or something I listened to a while back. And then she turns up in anime and stuff too, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's
I mean-
like super popular.
I mean, they kind of just did this with Hades too, not with Angrboda specifically, but like this thing of let's take a character who is named like twice,
Yeah.
tops, and has like 3 associations and no myths about them and no personality that's explicitly written down. And let's slap that name on our new character and take a few design elements from it and just tell a whole story about her. Because with Hades 2, the character is Melinoe, an underworld nymph who has basically exactly as much canonicity as Zagreus, possibly just a little more. And the exact same attested parentage of like Persephone and the Zeus of the underworld, which is, you know, Hades, and part of the Orphic mysteries. And she doesn't have anything else, or at least nothing that we know, because it's a mystery. They didn't write it down for a public consumption. But it is a very easy way to just sort of derive things from mythology without straight up making things up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm scared of Hades 2 coming out. The first one ate up so much of my life.
I know, right? I'm not ready. I am ready. It's gonna make great content, but I don't have time.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
My
Oh, well.
saving grace for Hades 2 is that I'm really bad at Hades 1, so I didn't have any motivation to finish it.
I mean, I didn't finish it either. I just didn't finish it after 50 hours.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I would need to get
Pretty sure it wasn't.
some equipment, but I have a Switch that's capable of streaming now. I had a Switch Lite before, and they just fully will not let you cast that video to anything.
Switch Lite was a scam. Sorry, that's not what the stream's about.
It was great early in the pandemic when I just wanted to play Animal Crossing. Anyway, so if I get really crazy good at Hades too, we could try that. But we'll
Yeah.
see. I'm not good at roguelites. I'm not even good at Cult of the Lamb. I'm not supposed to be good at Hades too.
This field always smells so
You were talking a few streams back about slow running this game. I
Yes.
think.
Yeah.
So Hades is probably
This and
like one of the
Pentiment.
best
I've been
speedrun games.
exactly.
Yeah.
I've been doing whatever the opposite of speedrunning is, both this game and Pentiment recently, and Hades I wasn't a whole lot faster at.
Sorry.
It's the brand of the channel at this point.
Yeah.
This is fun.
It's so fun.
This is extremely cute.
Because Loki's a shapeshifter, and therefore the first things he turns into are a bear, and then a wolf, and then now a fox.
He's a fox.
Yeah.
now?
You really made me work
To
for it.
race Angerbrother, it looked like it was more fox than wolf, but
I think the ears are
Loki.
bigger.
I don't know.
Atreus. Thank
I
you.
don't know. I'm not a biologist.
Well, that's cute, and I like how he's getting a lot better at it.
Yeah.
Got an ad. Curses.
Tragic.
Ah.
We're gonna stand here while the ad happens.
I suppose you're ready to get home.
As the ad,
I'll meet
as
you
people
by the
come back from the ad break, this is a great time to remind folks that if you want an ad-free viewing experience, unless your name is Blue, you should consider subscribing to the channel. If you have Twitch Prime, or if you have Amazon Prime, you have Prime Gaming, and if you have Prime Gaming, you get a free subscription to a Twitch channel of your choice every month. And if you wanted to throw those my way, it would be incredibly appreciated. It all goes right back into getting more folks on, more games, more stuff. But yeah, the support is appreciated, and hopefully the ad breaks end soon.
I'll let you know when I'm in the clear.
If your name is Blue, you will subscribe to the channel and then get ad breaks anyway
God, I
because
don't-
Twitch hates you.
Like, does
Chad,
Twitch hate me, or is that just how it works now?
I wonder if it's because we're both signed in.
Oh,
I haven't gotten ads. I thought it was just because I have ad block and I keep forgetting to turn it off. But
damn. Okay, I think
I'm
we're
just
back. At
kidding.
least
Yeah.
I'm back.
Chad,
Ad
if you
break.
can hear us, stick a nanner in there. You know how it is.
If you don't like
every time.
ads, use your Twitch Primes and subscribe to Ludohistory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in return, you get 19 emotes of the finest curated marginalia memes.
Ooh, ah.
They're perfect. Anyway, Angerbo has prophecy rocks, and the prophecy rocks say bad things are going to happen, so we should maybe do something about that.
It's fine.
The Prophecy Rock says Elden Ring will win Game of the Year.
Tragic.
I wasn't paying attention to Game of the Year. Did it?
Elden Ring
It
won
did.
Game of the Year.
I mean, Elden
God-
Ring, by all accounts, is a great game. It's astounding, though, that like God of War Ragnarok being, as mentioned in a previous stream, so much better than the God of War 2018, still didn't win Game of the Year. Testament to the fact that 2022 was actually a pretty good year for gaming.
Also, I think this game is way better than Elden Ring. I'm sorry. Elden Ring, I have some spicy takes about Elden Ring.
Come here.
They are desperate to not let
I
us
need to
see
show
what the
you
text
something.
on that rock
Oh,
is.
they so badly don't want us to get a real good look as to what's happening there.
Let us see.
I like that they're colored in. I
Yeah,
like the authenticity of coloring in the imagery in the
Yeah.
way that the Gotland stones and all originally would have been.
it's so good. Right. As a thing I've noticed they're starting to get better at is
Yeah.
there's some stones that they still just do the red paint on. But in general, games are getting way better at like remembering that runestones should have color attached to them,
I know how it feels.
which is an improvement over the rest of the rest of like medievalist media, which still hasn't quite gotten the memo.
To lose both.
Yeah. It's great.
Your mother made
Oh,
you
was my
want
audio
what
coming
you're
through weird?
father.
It's coming through fine on my end, so.
You
Yeah,
still
sounds
have
good.
Me too.
Okay, then it should be fine. Yeah.
Oh no, there. As you said at that time, you had a smidge of Oh well.
Some commenters are pointing out that God of War did win as many awards as Elden Ring. It was performance, score, and graphics, because this game has 9,000 graphics.
It does.
I don't know.
Oh
Best narrative,
yeah.
and I think best graphics. It doesn't matter.
It
doesn't
no,
matter.
Elden Ring won visual design.
Okay.
Yep.
All
All right.
right, we got a spicy take.
We got
That's
a
the spicy
spicy
take. So the spicy take, going back to the Elden Ring streams, since that's the one they wanted, is that Elden Ring has some serious issues in what stories it's telling, and that it reflects George R. R. Martin's interests in
Like I
elite
said,
political history in the worst way.
once you're
And
gone,
this game does a
nothing
much
is
better
over.
job on exploring diverse histories and diverse perspectives on narrative, and that's something I love to see in my
feel safe.
medievalist fantasies.
Yeah. For somebody who works for somebody who works in the field of like, Old Norse studies and works at university studying the Vikings, medieval Scandinavia, all that.
What are you gonna do?
We do have a slight diversity problem. So if things like God of War and whatever can bring people that aren't just white British people and Americans into the field, would be pretty nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, that is something that is still an enormous problem, right? You have Scandinavians, English people, and Americans with like a few French people, and that's our diversity, and it's bad. It's super bad, and I mean, this is true across early medieval studies, I think. But right,
Yeah.
when everyone targets Dr. MRO for being the one person of color who studies the early Middle Ages, we got a problem.
I am gonna see you again.
Yeah, I mean, new perspectives bring new ideas. New ideas are important to learning about, to academia, to universities in general. So
Okay, now
it'd be great to see more.
Yeah.
close your eyes.
Okay, and now we're going to go back home, and I'm sure Kratos is going to be totally fine with this.
I'm sure they're definitely going to be there when we wake up. They would definitely stay in the house when we just magically disappeared from our bed.
Mm-hmm.
Repeat it.
I like the point of Valette 95 in chat as well.
Yeah.
That there's a lot of differently abled people in Old Norse mythology,
Yeah.
unexpectedly.
And
Yeah.
in the legendary corpus as much as in the mythological one, right? Like in Grettis Saga, right, we have Önundur One Leg, who still is running around being incredibly violent, as all Marauders should be, but the saga says that he carries a tree stump around with him, and whenever their fight breaks out, he sets down the tree stump, and he puts his half leg on the tree stump, and then he swings his sword around, and it's fine.
Tree foot. I also, like, I mean, you know, in the sagas, everyone's always getting their arms and legs lopped off. Like, it's just a secondary side effect of that, is that you end up with characters who've had an arm or a leg lopped off, or, like, lost an eye or something.
Yeah,
Other home.
it's pretty.
Oh, did he go to the wrong home?
He went to Old Home, which
Dang it,
is...
Atreus! And now it's surrounded by zombies.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish the blades
Other home, other home.
Hell. But come on, we've killed more Hell Raiders than this.
Yeah, but it's scary being alone at home. If only
Yeah,
there were
well.
a movie franchise you could draw inspiration from. Quick, Atreus, set up a paint bucket. Ah!
It's funny that Atreus earlier in the game was like, shit, and Kratos is like, do you really want your last word to be shit, boy? And Atreus is like, no. And then again, something goes wrong, and Atreus is like, shit, fuck, ass, god damn it.
Blue going for demonetizing the VOD of this YouTube of this stream.
No. We're a full 44 minutes after the stream started.
This is true.
That ad break is not, yeah. Because in the YouTube guidelines, it's like, do you have profanity within 2 minutes of the start of the video or a mid-roll ad? And if the answer is no, YouTube doesn't care.
This is true.
They can't censor all of us.
We censor our stuff so that it like will pass for classes, but as far as like YouTube demonetization goes, they play it pretty fast and loose.
And I only censor because I think the Yoshi Mlem sound is just inherently funnier than saying fuck.
Yeah.
That's true.
Every once in a while, there's a curse word that'll slip into like minute 16 of a trope talk, and I'm like, oh, there it is.
Yeah. That's the thing, like, sometimes it's funnier to censor a swear word than to let it play out, but not always. Like,
Yeah.
it's all about the context, baby.
What were you thinking?
Oh
Have you,
dear.
have you talked about transformation in Old Norse myth?
We
Just
have,
going back to the fox.
yeah, we have not
Really?
super talked about that, but
Do you see
people have pointed out some very interesting
Then why?
things with it. So I have a thought about that first, but then if you want to talk about that, 100% feel free. Namely, Emmett222 pointed out, because they do Celtic literature, they were like, a bear and a wolf as the first transformation figures of a teenager,
Who's keeping you safe?
Menabunda. There's a very widespread Indo-European tradition of weird, spooky, wolf-related stuff for young men in the woods.
I can't talk about it, but I
Yeah.
just need you to try.
And I was like, crap,
It's
you're
heavy in
right.
the folklore.
Secrets, but I
Yeah.
trust you.
It's not the
I'm
same.
sorry, I love this argument
Why
that
not?
they're having because
You
it's
hate
just
things.
like, it's two
Mother hates
emotionally
things, you had good
constipated
reasons, and
people,
so do
neither of
I.
whom can
Why
admit
can't
that they
you
care
just-
about each other. Blatantly and loudly caring about each other.
Yes.
Who's gonna protect you, Dad, who's killed multiple pantheons?
No, only 1.5. We're
That's multiple.
I feel like if I was after this is going to be a trilogy, right?
no. This is the end
No.
of the Norse ones.
Okay, right. So
They originally
presumably
said
after
trilogy.
this, he's going to go to a different mythology, I guess, and completely ruin it in the same way he's completely blown up every world he's been to, and keeps killing his wives as well.
Maybe, possibly, yeah.
Where? Laufey, sorry.
She died of natural causes, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I
mean,
if Kratos
be scared.
killed Laufey, Atreus would never speak to him again.
Yeah.
That's true.
All right.
A bad case of Hercules syndrome.
Oh,
Also, I think that maybe Kratos needs to sit Atreus down and have the talk about, like, listen, I've died multiple times. It's just a matter of slaughtering my way out of the underworld instead of into it. It's fine. Oh, shit!
speaking of which, new figure, Vanities.
We don't want to fight you.
This is one of those places where if you know a little bit about Old Norse mythology, I guess you know who this is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Luckily, they don't keep this one secret for very long.
Yeah.
But yes,
Knock her helmet off at some point or something.
we'll see.
Yeah, so her name's pretty interesting. It's kind of
Yeah.
her name is Dis of the Vanir, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, the Vanir. So that kind of means god of the family of gods. It's again a pretty
Yeah.
big tip. Yeah, again that she's a woman.
Yep.
There's only like 3 of those.
It's really true. It's so sad.
Yup.
The DC are super weird. Like they're one of those groups that nobody knows what they did. If they were just another name for gods, if they were actual fertility deities. You know?
Yeah, fertility deity tends to be the cold read when they're not entirely sure.
Oh. I mean, I was 100% going to say that. It's
Sorry.
ridiculous. You can't be a goddess or a woman in Old Norse mythology or literature without somebody accusing you of being involved with fertility
Yeah,
and
it's-
childbirth as well.
It's motherhood,
it.
fertility, childbirth, and the moon. And that's your lot, baby.
100%.
Well,
That's why Greece compensated by introducing the concept of the herms, where it's just like statuesque personifications of like just dongs.
That's your fertility god right here.
Yeah. She's kind of like a Valkyrie, I guess, this one? Like,
Yeah.
you're kind of depicting that?
they are,
And-
in fact, explicitly portraying her as a Valkyrie.
Okay.
I mean, she looks like a Valkyrie, but she also just kind of looks like the Thanagarians from DC. Like, I know that it's backwards evolution, but I don't know. I feel like she could look a little less Hawkman-y.
True.
Yeah, she has a Hawkman vibe. Definitely.
Yeah,
Cool helmet.
it's the wings on the face that really does it.
Yep.
We can free you.
I was gonna say, yeah, the Valkyrie connection is pretty interesting because just as you were saying about all women essentially are eventually fertility deities. The Valkyries, I mean, maybe there's a sense they start out as these warriors, but in a lot of mythology they're just servants.
Yeah.
Serve men in a hall.
Even like old depictions, right? If we read some of those like Icelandic women as being Valkyria on those picture stones, that's like 8th century, where the Valkyria
That's
are
true.
cupbearers.
Yeah, that's just tough. It's hard to know with the stones who anyone is.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same with the statues. Like, you might find a statue of Freyr and think he's Freyr just because he's got a pretty big phallus. But maybe should I shut up and let people watch this cool cutscene?
Not a whole lot important happens. It's mostly Atreus has turned into a bear. Also, Vanadis is an epithet, or a Haiti, I should say, for Freya. Spoilers.
What a surprise!
Oh no.
She was our friend.
Just a little father-son hugging.
Exactly. Kratos being like, no, we're not murdering this god in particular. The rest of them, we can negotiate, but not this one.
Our genocide run has one parameter around it.
I'd say Freya is like goddess #1 for the. She was probably really important, but now everybody just thinks of her as a fertility deity.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
interesting because, like, with the Norse gods, even, I mean, it was like a running gag that it's always something and war. It's like, oh, this is the god of fertility and war. This is the god of thunder and war. And then Odin, magic and war. Tyr, war and war. Oh, I don't know. Wow, she really stopped this vendetta thing quick.
We're useful. We need to go to therapy about it.
Maybe.
I don't know. I kind of figured that Kratos had already been like, I'm not gonna fight you enough times that she was like,
You're of more
whatever,
use
it's
to
fine.
me.
I'll take it.
Yep. Look, this game has a lot of plot to fit in. We've got to get over things quickly.
Her armor is fantastic.
It's so
she
fun.
looks great. She's absolutely rocking it.
Really?
You will tell the truth when I return. Now I must set things right.
Aw.
And here on Midgard Fashion Week, we have Freya rocking a beautiful 17-piece.
Kratos, who are you wearing?
True.
Oh, you know, the ashes of my dead family.
Like always.
Do not let him out of your sight.
Very in season.
Come on, get a move on.
Oh boy. So, chat, we are going to head over to Vanaheim, which is going to be fun.
Your sight.
What is it you want?
Oh boy, the grown-ups have to go yell at each other now.
Exactly.
Bound to this realm.
Because, in the plot of this game, they do some funky
travel to
stuff.
Vanaheim.
Namely, Odin has cursed Freya to be stuck in
Guess it's
Midgard
just us then.
and be unable to leave and unable to fight. She regained her ability to fight and has not regained the ability to wander around outside of Midgard. So we're going to fix that now.
Yay!
Yay!
If you are still bound.
Also, we can use Spartan Rage to
I
do
crafted
more
a
things
protection
now.
ward that'll keep me from being pulled out of the realm.
Oh.
Instead of murdering
Interesting.
people, we can use it to heal people
What
ourselves.
is that?
The source of
Huh.
the
I was
magic
going to say that as a joke, and then it turned out to be the actual
we're
thing.
going to find
Yep.
it
But
and destroy it.
Yep.
I will help you,
it's great.
but it will not
Perfect.
change what I have done.
And also, the two adults are going to have a conversation, and Brock is here too.
Brock is also here.
Because we need comic relief and someone to get annoyed at, I guess.
Ain't going nowhere without this.
Okay. But yeah, we are going
Where would
off
you
to
mugs
a
bounce
realm that
even
is mentioned
people down?
exactly once. As far as I know.
I would say in a very cool way.
That's true.
She said they're going to Vanaheim, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yep, we are going to Vanaheim, which appears in the Thrudensmal as the place where Njörður grew up.
hold on. I have. I think there's maybe a couple. Hold on, I have my notes on this actually.
The other curses grew weak from Fimbulwinter.
Vanaheim.
It might pop up in Heimskringla
This one
as
is so
well.
strong.
I can't
Oh,
fully
boy.
remember.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah,
I believe that in the sense of the home of the Vanir, it shows up in Skirnismal and Thramskvida as just like there's a place where the Vanir come from, and mostly it's just about the Vanir are like, oh, they're wise and they know the future a little bit, but it's only described as like a noteworthy place in Thramskvida.
Yeah, that was like 90% of the way there.
Thanks.
Is not a part of
Well,
I mean-
Norse is hard. Modern Icelandic pronunciation is harder.
So Ragnarok's like a pretty big deal in this game, right?
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
so.
Unsurprisingly. But so there's two versions of Ragnarok in Old Norse mythology. I don't know. I missed the bits where you were talking about this, so I don't know if you've got into it. But
No,
you've
please
definitely
go
talked
into
about
curse.
you've talked about the
Sources
Village
further in.
I've talked about the
Um,
Villisval version.
Yeah,
which
which
is-
is like the most important kind of dominant version that we have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's also the version the game goes with, saying that it's Groa's prophecies, despite not
This
being
is a
that.
temporary alliance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a poem in which Groa pops up way later, and she's kind of like one of the stereotypical witches that come back from the dead to give prophecies.
Oh.
She doesn't talk about the end of the world in that, but
Nope.
she does pop up. So anyway, yeah, so maybe they're drawing on that a little.
Yeah, because it's just in Groa Galdur, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, very strange poem. Because it's
Yeah, totally
one,
weird.
it's like one half of a legendary narrative that involves a bunch of references that otherwise are never mentioned again. With the other part being what, Fjölvinsmal or Svipdagsmal?
Um,
It's somewhere in that.
Svipdagsmal is what at least that's the whole poem together. It's called Svipdagsmal, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's
Well, I mean,
messy. Look,
That's the hard part in Norse mythology. Is like, was this referenced only once because it's not important, or was this referenced only once because it was so ubiquitous that like that it only had to be said once?
Through here.
Or it got made up in the 13th century.
Or it got made up in the 13th century, or it was a Snorri original, like the Light Elves.
or we just got unlucky, and every mention, there were a bunch of mentions, and the luck of the draw says all but one of them failed to make it.
Seems I don't have much choice.
I mean,
knows?
like from a Freya point of view, she's pretty interesting because she's the only goddess I can think of that gets a poem, like a major poem dedicated to themselves.
Yeah.
But who knows how many other poems there were dedicated just to Freya?
Well, yeah,
Somebody doesn't write them down.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I think I'm kind of more of a fan of Snorri than a lot of people would be.
I mean,
I feel like he gets a bad rap sometimes. I know the Light Elves, Dark Elves thing is, yeah, I mean, he just made it up. It's based on Lucidarius or whatever. But
yeah.
It's suspicious specifically because he's like, oh yes, the Light Elves live in Turbo Heaven, the heaven that's even heavenier than our heaven. And it's like,
Yeah.
gosh, Snorri, I wonder why you would have a vested interest in portraying a level of godhood above the ice area.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Strange.
But in general, I feel like he tries to do his best. You know,
Yeah.
like
He does.
with Thor's fishing. There's a story about Thor going fishing, which is like a really big deal in Old
Yeah.
Norse mythology,
Oh.
and we've multiple versions of it. Not all of them in great condition, so we don't have every version of it complete. But Snorri's version of it, at the end of it, he kind of goes, well, we don't really know what happened here. Maybe Thor kills the Midgard serpent, Jormungandr. Maybe he doesn't. You know,
Yeah.
that's it. But I
Yeah.
think he didn't.
I do like that Snorri like cites his sources. That is one of the
Yeah.
fun things about the beginning of it, where in the which is it? The one where they're tricking the king. It's like the beginning of
Gil beginning.
Yeah, Gil beginning. That's the one. Because he's like, as they say, and then it's just like a direct quote from the Poetic Edda. And It's
Yeah.
like, hey, yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
It's
And sometimes you get other versions of poems that you don't get anywhere else, or like the start of the world's a bit different, and it's kind of fun.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like I'll sass him because I'm frustrated. He's all we've got, but he's better than
Yeah.
nothing.
I used to be the same. When I was doing my PhD, I was very Snorri. What does he know? Turns out he knows quite a lot.
He knows quite a lot. I love his stuff because my take on him is mostly that he's like recording the stories as he heard them as a kid, probably relatively faithfully. He's doing some invention, but I don't think he knew Latin. So someone else is, I think, doing a lot of the interpretation on like the very learned Elucidarius-esque. Actually, we have an Old Norse Elucidarius. That's not a great example, but the point stands, right? There's a lot of interpretation work that's going on before Snorri that I think we only have the faintest echo of. But I think he's recording the stories the way his people told them to his dad when he was a kid, more often than not.
Yeah, I'd say that Snorri probably didn't make it up. It's just, he's kind of indicative of the frustration at the heart of this, which is we didn't get a hold of it until it was already getting turned into something else. Also, are there a lot of dead guys in Vanaheim for some reason? What's going on?
There's a lot of either dead people or plant goblins. It's not entirely straightforward to me what the heck's going on there.
What the heck?
They do certainly do poison to me, so I don't know past that what to make of it.
I do love game design where it's just enemy spam. They all have like 3 hit points, but there's a million of them. That's always so much fun.
It feels so good. Also, this is our obligatory poison swamp level. Chat, Miyazaki spreading. This isn't even a FromSoft game, and we have a poison swamp level.
Miyazaki doesn't have any poison swamps in any of the movies except for Nausicaa, which
Hey.
is the entire plot of Nausicaa.
That's one way of
I'm just saying, that's not a Miyazaki thing.
Wrong Miyazaki.
Oh, sorry. I only respect one Miyazaki. I don't know who this other Miyazaki is. Is he cool?
That would be Hidetaka Miyazaki, creator of the Souls games.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he seems cool. He likes cathedrals a lot.
Yeah.
And poison swamps.
And
He
poison
enters a
swamp.
fugue state and then creates another poison swamp. Anyway.
I was going to talk all about the end of the world in Vaftruth's man.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, let's
it's
do
not
it.
hugely important or anything. It's just different. It's just weird that it's different.
It's fun.
They must
They
have
just set fire to the
hidden
world, as far as I
themselves out of the
remember,
wilds
and
and
some
covered their
humans
tracks
hide in the
with magic.
forest, and it's all fine.
No way
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
how
They
to
find
Yeah.
the
know
forest
or
afterwards.
how to reach them.
Super weird. But and Njörður just goes home before it happens. It's like, well, why didn't everybody just leave?
He just
I
leaves.
guess.
It sounds like it's tied in with some of the stuff in Ragnarok. Surtur burning the world. Is it Ask and Embla? Or no, those were the two first.
It's Leaf and
right?
Leaf Thrasio.
Leaf and Leafthrasia, that's the one. Yeah. the
Hopefully,
other-
Life and Life's husband.
He
Ah.
invaded again as soon as I was exiled.
Got the old Laufey son treatment.
Exactly.
Old Norse mythology is just weird.
It's
Like,
so
Groa-
weird.
The Groa thing. I know Luca talked about Groa, but it's so weird. It's just this one person that pops up out of nowhere to take a whetstone out of Thor's head. Here's her husband is fine. He's arrived home safely and forgets how to do magic because of it. So,
Yeah.
What's that about?
Literally no clue.
Sometimes I
Doesn't
wonder
fit
how
anywhere
many of
else.
these things are just like puns that don't translate or something.
Yeah, I could totally agree.
Yeah.
I get the feeling with that one that there's a longer story. There's something
Yeah.
else there. But
Well, that's definitely a thing that's frustrating, but cool about the Poetic Edda is how much of it is there's a 2-line reference to what is clearly a much longer story, but you don't give me the longer story. It's just then Loki ate the burned woman's heart and birthed all the evils in the world. Yeah, we've all seen it. And it's like, wait, come back. What?
there's an evil witch that lived in Yarnville. Which
Yeah.
one?
You
Who
don't know.
knows, really?
According to this game, Grilla, the Christmas troll. Anyway, and I think we found the reference to these these Gulon, and it's from the Carta Marina.
Huh?
Well, these little dog things that are fighting us are in a 16th century map and accompanying commentary.
Oh, that's cute.
Because they're called the Gulones, according to Olaus Magnus. mapping Scandinavia from his home in Venice.
Ah, yeah, we've all been there.
An appropriate vantage point to do any mapping of anywhere.
Exactly. Actually, I love Olesmak like what he's doing there so much because he clearly like is working with people in Scandinavia, but he got exiled because he's like a Catholic bishop of Sweden in the 16th century. So he was in exile in Venice, but he was like, wow, Ptolemy fucking knows I know nothing about Scandinavia. Let's make an addendum to Ptolemy's maps that does Scandinavia right.
Let me show you how it's done, white boy.
Exactly. And he ends up having like Starkader in northern Finland, and it's like, hey, that's cool. That's like 400 years later or earlier lore that we can guarantee is being handed down because it's four-arm half-giant Starkader and Sterki just hanging out on this map, along with a bunch of sea monsters and people riding reindeer, and like one of the first meaningful descriptions of the Sami. So it's such a cool text, and it's enormous.
Oh man.
Like the map is ridiculously large, and the book is even thicker.
I would say the map looks good on anybody's wall. It's very good. It's one of those
100%.
maps you look at, and there's just loads of information in every tiny square of it.
This is like
100%.
the dorkiest thing, but like one of the first things I remember getting really excited about drawing was like made up fantasy maps with like dragons and sea monsters in the water.
Yep.
I just thought it was so fun. You draw the little noodle snake with just like the arches for the back, like little macaroni things, and then just the head, and it's like, there it is. There's a sea monster in those waters.
Exactly. And Agalias Phoenicus in chat, or Phoenicius, points out, Gulon is a Latin word, not an Old Norse word. It means Wolverine.
Hey!
It's a
Why do you
Wolverine.
think I need to hear any of this
That's right,
right
bub.
now? My focus
Exactly.
is on regaining my
The
freedom,
weird
and I have
doggos that
no
we've been fighting
intention
are
of being
Wolverines.
distracted.
And don't worry about it.
I think I want someone to mod this game where nothing else has changed, but these things just make like random little Wolverine noises.
Yes.
I love that. Like,
There's a
I
variety.
study,
Enough.
I still study Old Norse mythology, which was passed down through oral
when I
tradition,
was
you know, like 1,000
standing
years
on my
ago.
feet
And then you get the printing press
understand me?
as the way of transmitting
Will not be while I'm
information. And now
stuck
you've
in
got,
this
you know, Twitch
preposterous situation.
chat,
Yeah.
where
Exactly.
the best information comes from.
Exactly. I mean, my Twitch chat is above average. You all are lovely. But we have people who like are more expert experts than I do, and I don't know why I'm the one on camera.
My Twitch chat is in the top percentage of Twitch chats.
Exactly.
Wolverine the X-Man, obviously.
Both? We could do both.
Nah.
Nah.
It is funny when people learn that Wolverines are real animals.
God, they're kind of terrifying animals too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's appropriately named.
Okay. You will name one of the Gulons Jonathan then. Ah, that seems fair.
Everyone away. What
We've
weapon
got
did
Jonathan,
you
we've
make
got
of
Timothy,
Wolverine?
we've got Jimothy,
How much was
who's
the
different from
build?
Timothy.
Can one man do
This is
this?
exactly how I imagine Vanaheim.
Depends on the
Yeah,
weapon.
they're doing, like, the creative work in the world design here is wildly cool.
They're very good. Like, I mostly play pixel art games these days. I don't have time for anything else. So I'm blown away, to be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is very pretty.
it's so pretty.
I gotta say, it's interesting because we get no description of Vanaheim, like, at all. It's literally just, it's the place where the Vanir live. So I feel like they could go really buck wild with the design. And it's kind of interesting that they seem to have just kind of gone, like, it's like a really beautiful, it's the nature dimension. Which kind of makes sense because there is that sort of thing where it's like, you know, Freyr and Freya are both kind of fertility god-esque, as I understand it.
Yeah.
And
Freyr
you know.
much more so than Freya, TBH.
I mean, Freya's the warlike of the two siblings, but you know, she also gets a little bit of the association, especially later. And
Okay,
I
but
think-
Freyr also fights Surtur, so I don't think he's not.
well, that's the thing.
warlike.
It's also a god of fertility and war. It's just the fertility's capitalized and the and war is in like small text. But you know, if you can't. If you can't single-handedly decapitate a giant in the Norse pantheon, you officially qualify for aid. But anyway, I think it makes sense to sort of be like, yeah, these guys, they come from like the nature dimension. You know, if Asgard is beautiful, shining golden halls, then you know they come from like a wood elf type kind of situation. You know, you got the high elves and the wood elves, Tolkien style, or more like Tolkien was like, you have the Aesir and the Vanir.
I think there was a big sort of movement, especially in the early 20th century, to make to kind of conceptualize the Aesir as order and civilization.
Yes.
Because they're the main gods, and then the Ymir especially are these nature spirits.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Spirits of the
familiar with
dead.
this theory.
But I think the Vanir kind of, you know, that was something that was deflected onto them as the inferior kind of gods in the eyes of modern scholarship.
Yeah, it's hard to tell how much of that is reading into the original text and how, like, a modern bias being applied and how much of it is supposed to be there, because it's like, they were part of a hostage exchange. Like, they talk highly of, like, Njord and, you know, Freyr and Freya, I believe are referred to as, like, it's something like the finest of the gods, because I remembered noting that, because it's kind of, and I'm not saying there's a parallel here, I'm just saying, oh, hey, that's the same as it is over there, but it's similar to, in the stories, like the Homeric hymns to Apollo and Artemis are like, these are the best gods, these are the ones that everybody loves and respects and fears, they're so cool, congratulations to their mom, whose name I currently cannot remember because I'm busy, you bore the best children in the pantheon, and just like, it's kind of rare to get brother-sister twins in mythology, and I don't remember Freyr and Freya are supposed to be twins, but whatever.
They are.
They are, yeah. So it's actually quite unusual to get brother-sister twin pairings in Indo-European mythology. You just mostly get identical twins. You get your Castor and Pollux, your Dioscuri, Lugalera and Naslanta Ea from Babylonian. Anyway, so I noticed when the twins do the same thing.
Yes.
But the idea that maybe the Vanir were like, you know, they tried to invade and they were defeated, and then there was a hostage exchange, and then we don't see any other Vanir except the ones that are among the Aesir now. Like, you could argue that you're supposed to kind of be like, oh, well, they're not from around here. But also, there's no evidence that the gods, except for Loki, disrespect them for that. So it's like, yeah, they came from somewhere else, but we're all about that. We're fucking Vikings. We know what it's like to come from somewhere else.
Yeah, about that, Völuspá strongly suggests the Vanir win. Right, they like sack Asgard.
Well, they do break the wall and stuff, and it needs to be rebuilt by the...
Yeah, no, it's strongly implied both there and in Ynglinga Saga. So I think Snorri definitely thinks, going off of Völuspá, that no, the Vanir win the Aesir Vanir war.
I guess that explains why they could get away with decapitating Mimir and get no consequences.
Yeah.
So there's an old reading of the War of the Vanir Aesir that says that the Vanir are essentially impossible to kill, to stop, because they're supposed to be these nature gods and, you know, spirits of fertility, and they just keep being reborn over and over and over again. And before that, they do kill this witch, and they have to kill her over and over and over again just to make sure she's fully dead.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, they burn. What is it, Guthveg? They burn 3 times, and she just still isn't dead, and they're just like, what?
Yeah.
I think spears get involved, and it's pretty gory. But
yep. By the way, chat. Here's the Vanaheim squad, and Freyr.
No.
What?
No need for threats, brother.
Everyone say hi to Freyr, and note, does not... One of the gods we have a lot of depictions of, and he's
I'd cut off your head.
oddly somehow in this game not horny enough.
Aye.
Freyr knows Mimir?
Yeah!
What's going on?
Why wouldn't
Oh
you?
wait, hold on. Yeah, that makes sense. But they were hostage exchanged.
He sold my sister.
Yeah.
I guess they shouldn't have met except crossing
Yeah,
over.
did they like
really.
nod as they passed each other?
They met after he got decapitated in the mythology or something. Because,
Where is my sister?
yeah,
This explains why Freyr is not on
Dungeon and
Odin's
Asgard.
side.
Is she even alive?
she's fine. She's just in her hawk shape.
I guess we'll settle for blood.
Stop!
Okay,
In
yeah.
general, I'm pretty negative about connecting images to particular gods, being, oh, this is clearly like, a Jotun, this is clearly a particular
There's no
burger
time to
or whatever
explain,
from
just
mythology.
listen.
But
These
maybe
men are in my
because of the
service.
excessive
I'm
horniness
here
of
to
Freyr
reclaim
in
what's
mythology
taken from
and in Adam of Bremen, like contemporary, semi-contemporary accounts of Old Norse religion, maybe it's fair that if you find a statue with a big penis,
Now let them
it's fair.
pass.
Yeah, I think it's as far as there is such a thing as a reliable identification, that's about as reliable as we get. Also, yes, she did call him Yngvi, which is good because Yngvi Freyr is a stupidly well attested name, including at the start of the Ynglingatal, the
That's
genealogy of the kings of Norway.
What's Yngvi actually literally mean? That's a good
I
question.
don't remember. I wonder if Zoega says it.
Put him down.
It probably doesn't.
I like that Kratos isn't quite willing to be like, yes, I serve Freya. He's just like, mm-hmm.
We will technically. We're cooperating right now.
We're colleagues in this venture.
Oh, can it, Blobber? Come here.
I don't know what Yngvi means, and
I
I don't
think
know
it's-
if anybody does.
It's gotta, yeah. Zoega says Inglinger is just a young person, but I think that's unrelated.
Do as you wish.
I think that's a coincidental form, but you could say it's just like the youthful one, as a potential one.
Okay.
But don't quote me on that.
I like the idea. I don't know if people on here, extremely educated, so probably know better than me, but the idea of a Noah name, I don't know if you've come across that.
Yeah.
I
the-
haven't.
Sorry,
it's this sort of like taboo, right? It's often phrased like a taboo name, more common in the Shetlands. And there's like whole lists of Noah names that
Yeah.
are like we have texts that describe the names you're not allowed to say for the other things.
Right.
Especially it happens with sailors, for example. They use particular words when they're on the sea, and particular words when they're on land. The best example I can think of, outside of mainstream religion, is Voldemort. He
Yeah.
shall not be named.
Yeah.
Well, part of the
I-
problem, as I understand it with this, is that the name doesn't get written down anywhere because it's forbidden. So it's like, what was it? Because of course there's like bears is probably the one that most people know about now because
Yeah.
the internet latched onto that. The true name of the bear is probably some variant of like Arcos or like Arthus because that's the actual root. Arcturus, Arctic, Arthur, but everyone calls it bear or Bruin or brown because that means brown one, and it doesn't mean, hey, come get me, bear, I'm
Or-
invoking the true name of your
Yep.
soul.
So, by the way, the Celticist corrected me. Arthur, due to linguistic quirks, can't be from bear.
Ah,
It has to be. It should be Earth if it's not Earth for Welsh, and it's like, dang it.
I'm
But
looking that up.
in Slavic languages, we have Medved, the honey knower, the one who knows where the honey is, as the same vibe.
Okay, well, the etymology is disputed. The current most generally accepted theory is that it derives from the Celtic artos, meaning bear, the Welsh arth, meaning bear, the Proto-Celtic artos, meaning bear. Could also be Old Welsh arth, bear, and man, or a Latinized name.
There it
So-
is. Oh yeah, if from bear. Oh, this dude corrected me. If it was from bear, it'd be Arthur with a W rather than Arthur with a U.
Are we arguing the spelling of a name that's 1,000+ years old?
Welsh phonetics does very specific things.
I don't buy it.
Hey, Kratos.
I'll believe it when I see
Why
it
don't you
from a
work
source
with my
that isn't a
sister?
Twitch comment. No
Careful you don't
offense.
screw up.
That's
I thought
fair.
we just find out that they're the best possible means of transmitting important information in the modern era.
Exactly. We have confirmed this, definitely. We swear.
I was thinking, it's not really my original idea or anything, but Freyr and Freya, Lord and Lady, seem a bit too much like Noah names to be avoided, especially when you have another popular name like Yngvi.
Well,
Yeah.
it's interesting because this is similar to what I ran into when I was looking up Persephone. Because, of course, the name Persephone is, everyone knows that's her name. But there's also Despoina and Kore, and Kore especially. It's like, oh, she's the maiden. It's the maiden. We're calling the maiden. She's doing this. And it's like, yeah, which maiden? Oh, the maiden. And Despoina especially, she explicitly had a mystery cult about her where, you didn't learn her true name, you weren't able to speak it unless you did the mysteries. And it's like, well, she's probably Persephone, or at least like a goddess so close to Persephone that they were basically the same being. But who knows? Not me. And especially Greece loved their mystery cults with secret true names.
So many of them. So Chad is saying that Google suggests Yngvi might go back to ancestor, which is equally unhelpful. Oh yes, the Lord, you know, the ancestor. The other guy, the guy.
For, like, Freyr's one of Freyr's most important roles in Old Norse, you know, the Old Norse cultural environment is that he's the ancestor of kings.
Yeah.
You know? So maybe that works.
Yeah.
Although, so the Ynglinger are really just, you know, the people who are descended from the ancestor.
Exactly.
The Ynglinger kings of Uppsala.
Well, admittedly, we are talking about a pantheon where Thor's name literally means thunder, and a lot of their other names also literally mean, you know, what they are. So if it's like, this is Lord and Lady, they are, you know, lordly and ladylike, and they father lines of kings and stuff like that. Like, it does make sense.
It does make some sense. And then, then we maybe trust Adam of Bremen when he says Odin idest furor. And it's like, Odin, which is to say, wrath.
A lot of people like that, I guess.
I don't know how far I ever trust Adam of Bremen. I change my mind every week.
Well, Odin has like 800 different names, so one of them's probably Wrath.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But so, like, in terms of Thor, there's a poem called Lokasen.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty popular poem.
We love it.
Well known if you're into it, yeah. But Thor shows up at the end of that, but he only shows up, even though he's supposed to be far away in this like other land, obviously Hun Jötnar, because that's what he does.
Yeah.
He turns up whenever they say Florivi, which is one of the other really popular names for Thor in Norse mythology. So it's only when they say his name. Yeah, a little bit.
God, that's fun. I like that.
So maybe this is the idea that, you know, if you say a god's name, you get their attention right there in that moment. And sometimes you want that, and sometimes you're like, they might get a bit angry.
Sometimes you fully do not want that. And in the context of gods with dubious names, who if you say their name, they'll show up. Tyr, you know, 98% of the word Tyr, that is not in the plural. In Old Norse, will summon Odin.
I mean, you know, it's interesting because when we're talking about myths of gods and it's like, oh, they're so temperamental. A lot of them are like, sometimes they show up to help and sometimes they're jerks. What's going on with that? It's like, well, again, you know, you're looking for narrative consistency through an embodiment of a real thing these people dealt with probably on a daily basis. Like, oh, why is Odin such a dick sometimes? Well, if you're a war god and you're a warlike culture that does a lot of war and sometimes the war doesn't go so hot, what do you think the explanation is? Or like Thor, he's so cool, but also sometimes he's really scary and temperamental and angry. What a jerk. It's like, yeah, you personify something like thunder and lightning. It's not always going to be happy fun times.
Yep. By the way, chat, should we look up a picture of Freyr?
Chat's saying yes, but if we're talking about things that'll demonetize the pod...
Hashtag demonetize the pod. Yeah. But it is, right, if we're talking Norse religious studies and actual practice, it's maybe important to look at what the actual artifacts from the period look like. Educational content, educational nudity. I'm sure
you're going straight to Reylinga, right? That's the one. The Reylinga idol, right? That's the one you want.
It sure is. We're just going to locate it first, and then we'll click over to it. And because we don't need any random fan art infiltrating our Google results. Luckily,
demonetizing even more.
Exactly. Can't get.
You see, like, some scribes in like the 1200s, like, oh, these artists, all this fan service.
That's my favorite thing. That like artists making sexy art has been a problem for so long.
All right, chat.
Like, oh yes, do it.
Content warning. Male genitalia. Shocking.
Godly, divine
genitalia.
If we do it like under 5 seconds, we might be okay.
There's Freyr. Look at him go.
or a few seconds back.
Oh my god.
Whoa!
Rare. Good sir.
It's smaller than I remember, if anything.
Honestly, yeah.
Downright tasteful, I'd say.
It's only the size of his forearm. I'm sure the Vitruvian man is similarly proportioned.
Somebody in chat mentioned Vulsafaptor, which is a good reference.
Oh
That has
boy.
come up before.
Who?
Yeah.
Which of the usual culprits is it who brought up Vilsafouter?
Let me see. I gotta go back. I've lost it. It's gone.
Tragic.
Oh!
Vilsafouter is just a lot.
Nobody knows if it's a mockery of Old Norse religion, if it's accurate depiction of some very unusual cult that just likes to pass around horse phalluses inside their house.
Oh, so that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
They worship a horse phallus.
The Vulsi is a mummified horse phallus.
Cool.
Yes. It's like that. Don't worry about it. We also had a couple of channel point redemptions, because as you watch the stream, you accumulate channel points, which you can use to spend on stuff. That stuff includes compliments and nitpicks. So, have you seen something right now that you particularly, or in the last few minutes, Declan, that you particularly like, and or something that you particularly don't? In the game.
In the game.
I was thinking,
Also
for
in
this
chat.
The person that is, for this dude would get my points, if that's a thing I can do. No, I haven't. So I've been too focused on palaces.
That's fair.
Yeah, my nitpick is Freyr dong too small, actually.
I'm kind of glad that Freyr in the game is like clearly shaping up to be a good guy.
Yeah.
It's a little bit tiresome sometimes watching Kratos murder his way through a pantheon of frankly kind of cool sympathetic figures that the game is just flanderizing into one-dimensional snidely whiplash villains. So letting them have personalities before they get murdered is kind of fun. Also, is Freya currently stuck as a bird?
Freya is currently stuck as a bird, and that is in fact my compliment of that. They really lean into the fact that one of the things that Freya consistently is said to own in multiple texts is, a hawk's shape is specifically how it's referred to, and we're usually like, that's a cloak. But I think they actually use the term hammer, or like form, for that. And so the fact that it's something she can just do in this game is something I actually like. I think it's reflects the evidence honestly better, though I don't know how Loki borrows it in.
That's what I was gonna say. It makes sense that they translate it as cloak if it's something she can pass around.
And one of those, when Idun gets kidnapped, whatever poem that's in.
I did not remember. There's a skaldic poem involving a funeral and a kidnap and something else. That is true.
Huh.
Yeah.
I think it might be that one. That seems a good guess. The whole, it's kind of weird that like I think Loki can transform Idun, like easy peasy. Just this bit of magic, he transforms. But and he himself
can transform.
Sometimes can transform. But and other times he needs a cloak. There's just really zero consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the cloak thing is very cool. The helmet is like skin, form. That's just a great idea. It's a great image.
It's a really good image.
A lot of stories kind of play a little fast and loose with like shapeshifters, but what exactly can they transform into, and like what are the limitations? I think in Journey to the West, it's like there's a specific number of transformations that Sun Wukong knows how to do, but it doesn't list all of what they are.
He just knows. He knows however many he knows.
Right. And then,
it's like
the others know less because they're not as cool as him.
It's like Odin knows 18 charms, and he'll describe 17 of them, and the 18th is a secret.
Oh, my brain just fully jumped the tracks. We got to talk about something.
There was also a nitpick redeemed, so something that we've seen that maybe we're not a big fan of.
I think that they could really get a little more creative with the enemy designs than different flavors of weird-looking, crusty humanoid things, and weird-looking, crusty dog-shaped things.
I agree. They're doing a lot better than the first God of War game, but I think there are
actually mini bosses in this game.
There's a greater diversity of crusty-looking humanoid things.
Exactly. But I agree. Right, there's still like
Everyone is
so
so
many
eager to
like
advise
different
me,
fun
as if any of you know me
varieties
or what I
of
need.
mostly
The biggest
undead.
loss
Let's be
in my
honest. There's
life
mostly
is due to
variations on
you
undead beasties
saving me when I
that we could
specifically
be
told
doing.
you not to. Well, it was my family.
Well, these things are
puzzles
also,
a
like-
loading
I know
thing,
Baldur
right?
wasn't perfect,
Yeah.
but he
Yeah.
was mine.
Okay, maybe that's my nitpick. Is that just every so often I just have to watch the main character
I
crouch
think you can even
and walk through a
begin to
tunnel for a while.
understand the pain
That's
of
fair.
losing a child.
Uh,
I do.
There was another.
Yeah, Baldur shows up in this, right?
Before.
Baldur
we
died.
already killed Baldur. He was the main thing of the
already
last
killed
game, and we murdered him at the end of the game. And Freya, Baldur's mother, is extremely mad about that.
Never mind.
What?
Oh,
Sorry?
they're finally having the conversation about Kratos' dead family.
Yeah. So yeah, this game does a circlet outer and says that Freya is Frigg, and
Oh, okay,
is Odin's
okay.
consort. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boom, okay.
That does make sense. That is,
That's
a
popular.
supported theory.
Yeah, people like that. That's a good thing. I tend to try to avoid that, just from the point of view of not making every woman in Old Norse mythology the same one.
We only have like
Especially-
3. Why would we drop the number
Yeah.
2?
But there is something to it, I guess.
Yeah.
Can I just say as well that I think Freyr is my least favorite of the Old Norse gods.
Well,
Oh.
he doesn't have a lot going on most of the time.
Sorry?
He doesn't, like, as I recall, he doesn't have a lot going on most of the time. Like, there's the he spots that giantess and he wants to marry her, and then he sends like his servant to go and talk to her, and then he's not really
Exactly.
Also, Skirnir's the worst human being, so
Oh, yeah,
And
cool.
Freyr like sends him off to do the worst things imaginable to this poor woman.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if chat knows much about Freyr, but he's a jerk. He and Skinner's the worst. They just curse this poor woman. They spend a whole half of a poem just saying horrible things about what they're gonna do to her.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna go to hell, and you're never going to know love, and you're gonna get stuck married to a 3-headed fish, and it's gonna be terrible, and that'll all happen right now unless you go marry Freyr. And it's like, whoa!
It's a bit
Consent!
giving of the shrew, isn't it? Yeah. But yeah, other than that, Freyr, I don't think has a lot in his storytelling except how he dies in Ragnarok, because he doesn't have his sword.
He
He
kills.
might give away his sword in that poem, Skirnir.
Yeah,
He
Skirnir's
might give
not-
it away to Skirnir and never get it back. So then he has to fight Bailey, a giant, I guess, Jotun.
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
with a stag, like an antler.
Yeah.
Like the antlers of a stag.
Yep.
And then whenever it gets to Villespal, at the end of Villespal, you get this Ragnarok fiction. He maybe gets killed by his own sword.
Ha!
Yeah. There's different readings of the end of the poem, but
Yeah.
there's a chance that you can translate it as the son of the god. What sword is.
Yeah, and then Snorri says, hey, he'd win against Surtur
Yeah.
if he still had the sword, but he gave
Yeah.
it up like a moron. So
It's not even clear in the original poem. Snorri cleans it up a bit. It's this happy romance marriage thing that goes on. But in the original poem, it's not very clear if it's just a dirty weekend that he's after, or it's a more committed relationship.
yeah,
So
yeah. I need to read Simon's dissertation about that, because I know he has a big thing about Skirnisnal as like a ritual practice thing, and I just haven't actually read what he wrote about it.
Oh, you haven't? Oh gosh, come on,
I know,
amateur.
right? I'm talking about Simon Newlord, another scholar that we're both friends with at Aarhus University.
really knowledgeable guy, really good.
Super cool guy.
Yeah. Actually, as a visitor to the stream, I'm really impressed with the level of Old Norse knowledge here. Greek knowledge and Latin knowledge and everything else. It's very impressive. I think Adam knows way more about sagas, especially, than I've probably ever done in my whole life.
My research was on Sturlunga Saga, so I got that 13th century history down.
That does make it a little bit easier.
Every once in a while, I scroll through Ask Historians on Reddit, and I find a question that involves Scandinavia or Norse mythology, and I see the answer is like, oh, this is interesting. I feel like I've heard Adam say this, and I go back and it's like you/Sagathe, and I'm like, damn it, there he is.
It's me. Okay, this is sad. What? I feel like the Gralungur is a reference, like, appears somewhere, and I can't place where it is. But they don't.
To Google.
Exactly.
You
But
just you don't worry your pretty little head. I'll do it.
They
Gralungur?
don't actually mention what that something is. Oh, there it is. Nope, it's Grauðugur. No, is a different thing. We're missing an N in there.
Ah, hold on. Dang it! I
might
had a
be
thing.
There it is. It's just the
what
word
my
for bull.
Google turned
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, the Skaldic project confirms.
So good.
Looks like it gets referenced a lot.
Yeah, Graðungur is just a word for bull. So it shows up in like Eirik Saga Ræða as like the bull that fucks up the North American settlement and other stuff. So yeah, it's literally just saying this is a fireball. And fireballs do fireball things. Tragic.
Of course.
I was hoping we'd have something a bit more juicy there as a mythological reference, but no, they were like, what if cow?
We need to get to that watch.
To be fair,
We'll have to go
very
through the
important
valley,
for
this way.
Old Norse and like early Icelandic society.
Hey, they can't all be questing beasts, alright? Sometimes it's just a regular animal that we actually already know about.
Yep. Also, in Erbygja Saga, I believe, right, the demon cow is referred to as a Graðungur. Because it's Erbygja Saga, and there's a demon cow who's the undead revenant who they killed, and then they killed again, and then they burned his corpse, and then he came back as a cow to gore someone and then jump into the ocean. Just because. Sometimes people just be like that.
I wish I'd actually stuck closer to Erbygja Saga than I did. It's so much crazier than my game in the end.
Sorry, not related to that. I'm really liking this discussion of the events of the previous game.
Yeah.
There's something very cool when the characters like weigh in on the stuff they've been through rather than just sort of stalwartly living it. Yeah.
They're super thoughtful about it in this game. I'm a big fan of this section where the adults are talking about their feelings like reasonable adults. And, like, you know, doing something that I don't think shows up a lot in the Saga corpus, of people remembering to talk to each other about their feelings instead of staring at each other and wiggling their eyebrows a bit and assuming that that's the same thing.
And immediately getting divorced.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Especially in old Norse sagas where, or like, you know, the ring cycle, the originator that Wagner adapted.
Volsunga.
Yeah, where it's just like people being horrible to each other and miscommunicating and then immediately being terrible and then regretting it. It's like watching like a modern tragedy about how all these people are terrible and don't deserve to be happy. So I like that in this game, it's like, I've successfully opened up enough that I feel comfortable explaining to you what the fuck happened with my past. That the audience has known the whole time and has kind of been yelling at Kratos to be like, own up to it! Freya would probably stop trying to murder you if she knew what you were about, bro!
Nah, well, that the audience already knows about if they played the mobile spin-off game.
No, I mean the stuff about the family.
Yeah, but he mentioned Deimos earlier, who is a brother that only appears in like a spin-off.
Oh, yeah, I completely missed that. But yeah, the point is, like, Kratos' whole deal is that he doesn't talk when the audience thinks he should be talking. And it's this very specific kind of character frustration of like, would you please advocate for yourself, you asshole?
No.
So that Kratos is finally like, here's what happened, and Freya is like, oh shit, that's rough, buddy. Is like, yes, good! Good! Bond over this!
I'm learning something, definitely. It's really helping me come to a better emotional place.
Perfect. Project successful. Anyway, we are just doing a couple random fights here, because, of course, there's random fights all over this game. So, while we're doing that, I want to change tack a bit from talking about the mythology to talking about your work, because you've mentioned it a couple times, and chat, if you type !guest in stream, you can actually get a link to the Steam page for Choice of the Viking, which comes out, what, Thursday, December 15th?
Yeah. Thursday,
Yeah.
December 15th. Exactly.
So I want to like hear a little bit more about that, and you know, what can folks expect from that game?
Well, I guess it really depends how much interactive fiction folks have played before. It's a style of choose your own adventure. It's a bit like Choice of Games, the company I'm working with. I've done many of these games before, and it's a lot like the choose your own adventure books that I played as a kid, and a bit like the 80 days that kind of vibe. Yeah, but without the graphical interface of that one. Although there's some really nice art in it. I was really pleased when the company sent me the art for the game, the character art, because it reminds me a lot of like if Grand Theft Auto 3 had Icelandic settlers in it instead of gangsters, you know? And that was kind of what I wanted from the game to begin with. I wanted to do this semi-authentic, saga-ish account of the start of Iceland, but I've always kind of thought of the original settlers of Iceland as much as gangsters as anything else. You know?
I buy it. Yeah, they're not good people.
They're all about they're all these aristocrats coming over, just grabbing land from each other, desperately trying to get power. So I thought if I could do the Icelandic sagas meet Peaky Blinders, that would kind of work.
Amazing.
In the end, I don't know if I got as much Peaky Blinders in as I wanted to. There's a lot of trolls and undead people and gods and stuff running around as well, which maybe takes away from Peaky Blinders a bit. But hopefully there's some sense of that it all got fit in there. Yeah.
Very cool.
I hope so.
Yeah. So, I mean, what was it like, right, taking sagas, these extremely, like, linear narratives, usually about, you know, multi-generational people do violence against each other, and making that interactive?
Making that interactive. I feel like you can make any story interactive if you want to. Like the first thing I ever, the first game, interactive fiction I made was an adaptation of Ludohistory.
Yes.
Called Choose Your Own End to the Viking World. And you're kind of just playing through the events of Ludohistory, a bit of Skirnismal as well, actually. I kind of spliced that in there. But it depends what your goals are. Like this, like God of War, takes a lot of Old Norse mythology, obviously, but completely mixes it up, does very interesting things with it, creates expectations in the player. They're then toyed with particular ways based on their level of Old Norse knowledge. What I wanted to do was try to make something a bit more authentic to what at least the saga viewed the settlement of Iceland as.
Yeah.
But really just to share something. So I think it depends the kind of game that you end up with, the adaptation you end up with. There's things you can do depending on the format you're in. But it's really about what you want to do with it. That governs the end product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. So, on that vein, right, what was the thing, you mentioned a little bit of it, right? You want to have something that is a little bit more like the Icelandic sagas themselves in this interactive fiction. How do you go about, like, making that? What can you talk maybe a little bit about, like, some of the decisions you do on how do you keep these narratives sort of intact and portray them in this way while keeping the interactivity, like, somewhat meaningful? Right, because you could just be a movie that you walk around in.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the whole point of interactive fiction is to make choices. So it's really whenever you're making this, you're trying to make the player feel powerful in some way. You know, make the choices they have meaningful.
Yeah.
Enjoyable. So even when I was adapting it, it's not a very faithful adaptation of Eyrbyggja Saga. You have the antagonist, essentially, of Eyrbyggja Saga, Snorri. He's this very famous early Icelander that probably most of Iceland is related to.
Snorri certainly is, and that's all that matters.
That is true. And so he's a great figure, but I took elements of his character and put them in. There's a lot of other people from Eyrbyggja Saga that only appear in name, who are heavily adapted, their personal histories changed and everything. Because it was as much about getting, yeah, fun experience that also, like, I was trying to be authentic in terms of how is the hall built, you know, how does politics work to some extent. But it was as much about making sure that it was enjoyable and not a learning experience, you know? It wasn't trying to create a piece of edutainment. So it's fairly heavily adapted, I think. The reality of early Iceland isn't, you know, you're not meeting Jötnar as you walk down the road in reality, no matter what the saga is.
Sure. But what if you did? What if we accepted what the internet believes is true and is not? That there are Hildefolk along the ring road.
That's also a good idea for a game.
I have a question. What does that mean?
So there's a story that there's a rock in eastern Reykjavik along the main highway that they will, every Icelandic tour guide will insist is, when they were building the ring road, they were like, we're trying to blow up this rock and we can't. And let's go get someone who can talk to the elves about it. And they're like, no, the elves totally live in this rock, you're going to have to just go around it. That story first emerges about 10 years after the road was built, and there's no evidence of the other half of that, of people getting sick when they tried to mess with the rock. From 1950s archival material.
That is such a funny, ubiquitous thing of like, what's up with this one fucked up rock with weird vibes? Oh, you know, that's the haunted rock.
I grew up in Ireland, and I don't want to diminish the, you know, what people think of their environment and how they conceptualize it, and the people that might live in it but they don't see in it. You know, their beliefs are their beliefs. But there's a lot of that where I come from, like stories of bridges that were built on top of a fairy tree, and the bridge just kept falling down until some old man came along and said, "You can't build a bridge there. That was a fairy tree. They're really angry with you." So they had to move the bridge down the road a mile or something.
I think what strikes me the most about the story with the ring road is that it's not like believably far off in the past, like, oh, you know, like the 1500s, the 1700s. Like, no, this was like the 1950s, and they couldn't build the ring road because the elf rock was in the way.
Well, it is funny because, of course, on some level, I think a lot of us are like, oh, well, you know, we're smart now. We're modern people. We don't believe in goblins and elves and such like. But then, you know, it's kind of hard to unbake that out of your collective consciousness when it comes to stuff you can't necessarily explain. Because it's like, why does this bridge keep falling down? Well, there are any number of structural reasons this could be happening, but we've tried to build this fucking thing about 6 times. At this point, I think it's elves. It's just cursed. Let's just do something else. Sometimes it's easier to just, you know, have an explanation, even if it's one that you don't necessarily rationally believe, than it is to kind of have to be like, let's unpack this whole thing and figure out what specific branch of, I don't know, structural design is fucking us over, because we don't know.
I used to think so.
Yep.
Yeah.
When the Norns told me of my
No way, the last person killed in Ireland was for being a changeling was in 1895.
Yeah.
I wish that was the last bad thing that happened in Ireland.
That's right.
But,
Ooh. Oh, that reminds me. I recently watched through Dairy Girls. It was very interesting and also funny.
I cannot watch Dairy Girls. It's so
Too
good.
real? Or...
Too cringy.
Oh.
No, that's they speak the way I used to speak when I was a child, and I love it. I'm remembering all the words I used to use.
Yeah, I thought it was very fun. Although I will admit, it took a little while for me to really get it. The first few episodes, especially, are kind of really based on the comedy of like everyone's going to act insane except for one person who's going to question why everyone around them is acting insane and then be actively gaslit about it. I was like, oh, okay. But then in season 2, it really comes together.
That's good.
I know all the Ragnarok.
Secondhand
prophecies.
embarrassment. I can't watch any show that has it.
It was pretty rough, yeah.
I never understood The Office for that exact reason. Like, people like swear by that show, but I'm like, I cannot watch it.
Yeah.
So,
That's
anyway.
a good question in chat. What's the worst interpretation of Norse mythology in a video game?
Oh, wow.
What day did y'all stream Assassin's Creed Valhalla?
Hey!
Hey,
It's Tuesday, right?
that was only Tuesday, and that was pretty bad.
God,
I
that
won't
was
even lie, that
3
was
days
pretty
ago.
bad.
I think
Can I
that
do
Norse
one?
gods
Even
are
with
like
victory
what
foretold.
alien
I will
gene
not march my
memory
son to
spirits that
Yes.
you access by
He is no
taking
Spartan.
drugs. That one's pretty
I
bad.
would keep it
That
that
reminds
way.
me of Stargate. I completely
Yeah, I was
forgot
gonna
the
say.
Stargate.
Yeah. No,
It's
Stargate,
Stargate.
except that Stargate is way better executed than Assassin's Creed lore.
Stargate at least has the
Is my
gods
tragedy
show
not
up and
enough
have
of a
godlike
lesson?
powers and be dicks about
Fighting
it.
fate
Like,
is a waste
Hey.
of
Assassin's
precious
Creed
time
can't
with
decide
the
if all this stuff is
extended
made up or very real.
Exactly. Someone else is also suggesting Persona. I mean, Persona's just out of date. Right. Persona's Codex is just... It's exactly what you expect if you have, like, 4 encyclopedias of world mythology as your only sources.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Persona does pretty well considering it's kind of kitchen sink urban fantasy, pulling things from like every culture it can get its hands on, all the important names and faces, and then over designing them to hell and back with a hefty dose of the animes.
Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of questionable video games that are set in something that sort of technically resembles Norse mythology. Right, like, I don't know, there's like, oh, Wolves of Midgard, or Tribes of Midgard, or Niflheim, or there's so many. But Nordic is an entire genre of video games that you can just accuse almost anything of being.
Yeah,
What
it's
about the
like
crane?
it's
Can
it's
you
a
turn it somehow?
it feels like a more grounded form of fantasy than Tolkien-esque fantasy because he cranked it up to 11. But I think that makes it just kind of like the acceptable kind of vanilla fantasy choice for a lot of creators. Like, we'll just kind of make it pseudo-historical in a Norse-ish way, and it's like, okay. You seem to think that means Renaissance fair.
Yes.
Can I plug my game one last time?
Yes!
100%.
One of the reviews I got for my game, it's on theme. So it is also a guy who reviewed my book, in fairness, very favorably. But he did say that it was the game that Assassin's Creed Valhalla wished it had been.
Ooh,
It's
nice.
a big jump, considering Assassin's Creed Valhalla is clearly the game that it wants to be. But and it's a very different game. But you know, it's a pretty nice compliment to have received.
It's really cool, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty different games, though. I would say.
Use your blades. to
Oh, that's
save the
true.
torch.
There's a massive Stargate link in with what God of War. It's all
This is true.
Wait,
'Cause-
that's why that guy sounded familiar.
Yeah.
Shit!
Yep, our boy, Kratos, is Teal'c from Stargate SG-1. And he's the best.
Yeah.
I only watched a little bit of that on Netflix so far, but
Oh.
it is very funny to me that the fact that Teal'c turns into a good guy is like a big twist in the first episode, but he is fully on the poster that is the giant banner at the beginning, at the top of the show. It's like, oh, I wonder which of these guys in the snake armor is going to turn out to have a change of heart.
What? No, none of them. That would never happen.
I'd never realized that, but that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, they really ruined massive
Let's
spoilers.
cross the bridge now.
Well, I mean, the old first episode spoiler is a classic difficulty with TV shows, especially ones that have like an intro, like the opening shows all the main characters, and if that plays before the pilot, it's like, oh no.
Yep. Well. Luckily, it doesn't exactly ruin the show. That shows, like, so much of my personality. That shows this. Daniel Jackson is a distressing amount of who I am as a person.
I watched a lot of Stargate Atlantis, not semi-recently, but like a few years ago. And I like that Jason Momoa has spent his entire career playing different flavors of the same guy.
How can you?
Yeah.
Well, it's a character that works for him, and he executes it very well.
It's a great guy. I really like that guy.
I remember seeing Jason Momoa later on in maybe it's the remake of the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, Conan, or something. And I was like, oh my god, he
yeah.
still has a career? That's incredible. I'm so
He was
happy for
definitely
him.
in Conan. But yeah, he's doing pretty well. I mean, like,
Yeah, yeah.
he's, you know, Aquaman. It's kind of
Yeah.
DC is sort of still a thing.
We pretend.
Yeah. Aquaman was one of the best of the DC
Yeah.
movies.
He's kind of taking the same career trajectory that like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson did, where it's like, all right, we've got a lot of roles for characters where it's humorously incongruous that they are a large buff man. So he's playing some kind of like Christmas goblin in a Hallmark movie I've been getting ads for recently.
Wild.
Yeah. He's reached the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is the Tooth Fairy stage of his career. But...
I mean, it's only up from after that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, are you fighting?
Yes.
Yeah,
That
they've
makes
mentioned
sense.
that.
I guess they are the enemies, yeah.
Yeah, because Odin is solidly the bad guy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're fighting the Einherjar.
It's a pretty convenient way to reuse some models.
I mean, this was actually a different boss. You can tell he's a boss because he's
big and slow moving. But
what I mean is also using a scythe for some godforsaken reason.
What I mean is that the Mook bad guys can just come back, and it's like, oh yeah, they respawned back in Valhalla, and they're here again for revenge.
I guess you talked about Freya and Folkvanger a little bit.
Just a little bit, not a lot, actually.
Doesn't seem to be in this game at all.
Yeah.
So Folkvanger is another world dead in Norse mythology.
Yeah,
It
it's
says
referenced
in one of the poems that she gets half of the dead and then Odin gets the rest.
which is pretty hefty, because like earlier in I think the same poem, it's like, yes, Odin, the slain that go to Odin, you know, they train forever to prepare for Ragnarok, etc., etc. And then it's like, and also Freya gets half of them. She gets half of all of them.
Yeah.
Also,
I mean,
this is Odin
fun.
in the context of the poem. It is Odin admitting that Freya gets half of them, because it's Grimnir talking, and Grimnir is another name for Odin.
And it's clearly a very pro-Odin. Like I get a sense of the Old Norse pantheon as not completely pantheonic. Like maybe you have your favorite god. You have a god that's your best friend out of the gods. In a sense. And so maybe probably the people that wrote Grimnismal were huge fans of Odin and not fans of Freya, which, you know, that's why Odin gets such a big description of his hall and all his powers and all his names and everything. So yeah, it's not surprising that Freya gets such a small mention there, but it is, as you say, very impressive that, you know, she's clearly very powerful even in this context.
Especially if you ascribe to the theory that Freya and Frigg are the same being, which again, like, it's a bit of a spicy take, but it's like, okay, Odin gets half of all the slain, his wife gets the other half, and presumably they all train because it's specifically like these are the warrior dead. Like, you know, if you're not warrior dead, you end up somewhere else, like hell or that one ocean realm that we don't have a name for, but we pretty much know exists.
Also in Ervigir Saga.
Yeah.
In this context of this game, I suppose it's a bit disappointing that a lot of Freya's, you know, dead don't show up on your side.
Yeah, she's pretty heavily nerfed because she's kind of in dishonorable exile and doesn't have, you know, any of her trappings of power.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's
explained.
It feels like a necessary sacrifice for the direction they wanted to take her character for these games, but it is a bit of a bummer because there's a lot of cool stuff there.
Yeah.
She solidly seems like one of the most powerful and popular of the gods of any gender in Old Norse mythology. So.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, but with that, right, everyone has the god that is their best friend. God, there's so many. Which one am I thinking of? Is it in Örvar Odd where there's the guy that has the pet eagle and is like, oh yeah, Odin's my best friend, and Odin's like, we'll see about that.
Devastating.
And also, was it Thorolfur Mossbeard in Ervigir being like, Thor's my best friend, and everyone's like, yeah, Thor's your best friend.
Yeah, he changes his name from Rolf basically to Thor Rolf because everybody's like, yeah, you and Thor are good mates.
Is that why all those guys have Thor in their name?
Yes.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it's
possibly, yeah.
Terry Gunnell, I think, says, oh yeah, this is about as strong evidence as we get for Thor being far and away the most popular, like, worshipped god in Iceland.
I mean, if I had to choose a Norse god to be my bestie, it would 100% be Thor.
Yeah, because he also seems to be just, like, generally popular in the 10th century. Like,
yeah,
around about the time Iceland gets settled, like the number of Thor pendants in archaeological material goes way up.
I read a theory about that I'm curious what the opinion is on it, because it was the idea that the Thor hammer symbol starts getting put on everything as like a direct, it's sort of like a fuck you to the encroach of Christianity that's putting crosses on everything. It's like, we can do that too. We have our own T-shaped symbol and it's way shinier.
And the merchants in Riva are like, we can make some money off this.
Yeah. Buy your celebratory Thor keychain.
We actually have one from the early 10th century. That is a soapstone mold. There's one side of the mold has a cross pendant, and then right next to it is a Thor's hammer pendant. I was like,
So, I mean, maybe there's two explanations for that. One explanation being that maybe if you have a pantheon, why not just put Jesus in your pantheon?
Yeah.
You know? And so you get people like Helgi, like we talked about earlier, Helgi the Loon. And the other one is, it's a guy making a quick buck.
Yeah. The thing is, like, that is, of course, the most rational approach. If you are a polytheistic religion and then someone rolls into town with a new god, you're like, oh, sweet, yeah, we'll add him to the pile. And they're like, no. I'm sorry, there's a conflict. You see, he's big on having no other gods before him. And it's like, oh... okay, well, can you do lightning? We've got a guy that does lightning. He's real cool.
To aid my friends, but I will be no
it's interesting. I don't want to get real spicy and Jewish on this, but there's a funny thing, which is that the whole like no other gods before me thing is not like there are no other gods. It's I'm the god of you guys, so you guys have to be my fans. You guys have to be into me and nobody else. It was kind of from this time where it's like everyone had a god. Everyone had a few gods rattling around sometimes. Like this is our god, and then those guys over there, they've got their own god. But like written history kind of seems to really start after, larger established pantheons had started to form, and single groups, single families moving around with their own god was less of a thing than larger cultures with a lot of gods, with stories of how they showed up from somewhere else or were the god of another group of people before they joined the party. And it's like, I wonder what that could possibly be reflecting. Anyway, it's just an interesting case of like the way that line gets interpreted in certain like more monotheistic structurings of like, all other gods are fake is like, no, it's just none of them are your gods. That's the important thing. Anyway.
Yep.
I mean, not my area at all, but I do remember there being a lot of stuff about, God's wife coming out in studies a few years back. And, it's huge, the origins of the Abrahamic religions in pantheons, and the Abrahamic God being just one God among many in those pantheons. I mean, that's really interesting.
It is, yeah. It's very interesting to unpack. It's just you immediately hit the spice zone because, that happens with any living religion, but especially a living religion that's like, we're the only right one, is like, if you start unpacking its genealogy, it's like, hey, stop that.
Yep.
The current form that I specifically do is the only right one. Anyway.
I feel the source of the magic keeping me in
Old Norse context, I was going to say, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
I was born here.
That we get this really interesting text in, I think it's maybe the early 11th century, late 10th century, and they're these conversion verses, is what they're called. And they're by an Icelander who has gone to the court of Olaf Tryggvason, who's this missionary Christian king, and he's been forced to convert to Christianity. And there's this dilemma that plays out in his poetry. He has to convert. He's not really a huge fan of letting his old gods go, but he basically says the Christian God is the more powerful God, and therefore he's going to give up on the other ones.
Sounds like Pascal's wager.
I mean, that's a classic maneuver. That's like Moses in Egypt shit right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, chat wants you to elaborate on Olaf Tryggvason because Missionary King is potentially spicy, but also excellent.
I mean, not my area, but Olafur is a very interesting character. I've always thought he'd be a great person to do like a biography of, it's just a really good story. He is royalty in Norway. I can't remember his exact origins, but he goes up to the east. If he joins the Branching Guard for a bit, ends up in England eventually, converts to Christianity there, and then ends up in Norway and forcibly converts.
Bastard was counting.
Probably not as much of Norway as the sagas say, but some of Norway to Christianity. Seems pretty violent.
Yeah.
Maybe not a very nice guy. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, he prefigures the other Olafur, Saint Olaf,
Just stand there.
and there's some really spooky stuff that like can't decide whether or not they're the same person or not.
Very cool.
Keep at it.
Yeah.
Also, real quick, chat is saying the game just got very loud, probably because the giant monster just popped out of nowhere.
We can fix that. Chat, thank you for letting me know. The Nidhogger is now significantly quieter.
I like the framing of this, that Odin did some fuckery with the World Tree roots, and that's what starts the Nidhogg fight.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interdimensional. I think you said that earlier, right?
Yeah.
Or-
Like that.
A little bit, right? Where they take the realms extremely literally here. Of that there is the 9 realms, and they are different. Don't know different dimensions, but definitely different.
Different planes of existence, parts of the World Tree. They kind of went full D&D Planescape for it.
That's a good way to think of it. Like Old Norse geography is not consistent at all in
God,
terms of
no.
mythology.
Yeah, which is
so it
very
doesn't
funny.
always work, but yeah.
Well, because sometimes you see people doing the losing battle of like, I want to figure out, I want to put the realms on a map, and it's like you can't. It's poetry. I mean, good
You get
luck.
a lot of scholars doing that.
I don't know.
Today.
Whenever I see that,
I agree. It's a bad move.
yeah. It's sometimes I'm like, I think that you're reading this too literally, and or you're expecting too much consistency from a thing that has no reason to be consistent. Like there are so many stories where it's like there's only one part of this god that is ever the same across different stories because that's the only part that mattered. Everything else can be flexible, but or it's like this is the story of how the moon got put in the sky. Like no matter what else happens, the moon ends up there. Hey, Freya's back. Sorry.
Freya is back.
Savage.
And I mean, it's somewhat significant that we are fighting Nidhogger. Like this is an capital I important figure in Norse mythology.
Why the fuck does it have a laser?
Why don't you have a laser?
I ask
Everyone needs a
myself
laser.
every day.
Nidhogger invented lasers. No wonder he was important.
Wait, it makes portals? What's happening? Actually, that makes sense for its ability, but also what the fuck?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So the idea is that Freya's now free to travel in Vanaheim, but in all the other realms she would still be stuck as a bird.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a nice way to add another 5 hours to the game.
No, don't worry. We're just gonna break Norse mythology, and then everything will be fine.
Everything?
What?
Like we won't need to do the little root search fetch quest thing?
Nope. They're all right here. She just only had time to break the first one.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, never mind. Cool.
That's some God of War 2018 kind of bullshit.
I was gonna say, like, if we get to the end of this and Freya's like, it's not even in this realm, I'm gonna lose it.
Ow. Ow. Ow.
I
Okay.
really hope that Ratatosk is gonna pop out of one of these portals randomly, like, hey buds, what's going on?
So yeah, Raptorus notes Nidhogger is a protector of the roots instead of the mythological reference in the prose and poetic Eddas, where Nidhogger is attempting to devour the world tree from the roots down.
Very, very slowly.
It's kind of this like source of destruction and decay, explaining why the worlds are slowly getting worse. I guess it's like quite a pessimistic view of civilization, really.
Yeah.
It makes sense though, because it's attested in the same space as like the suspicious Ragnarok poems being about like the world's gonna get shittier and then everything is going to end and then a great god will appear and it's like, well, get out of here, 12th century scribe adding to this. Who do you think you are?
Yeah, I love the end. That poem ends obviously with him popping up in the very last verse in one of the manuscripts, anyway.
Yeah.
But I love the end of that because it's like it's not clear if he comes back after Ragnarok's happened, after the world has come up out of the earth again, and the gods have thrown away their board games for some reason. But he flies up in the sky, and then you're like, is this because corruption can never truly be destroyed, even in this new paradise world, or is Ragnarok just starting, and Nidhogger's about to attack?
Yeah.
I read the theory that oh god, what the fuck? Sorry, I just saw the animation for what it does with its stomach.
Yep.
That's gross. Anyway, I read a theory that stanza is out of place because it's physically not supposed to be there, because like everything else is winding down, and then it's like, and then Nidhogg arrives with dead men on its wings, and it gets beaten back or something, and it's like this isn't supposed to happen during Ragnarok.
Yeah, I've not heard that, but that makes a lot of sense.
It was like a footnote in one of the translations I had. It's like there's a possibility that this is out of place, because sometimes the stanzas get shuffled around.
Yeah,
exactly.
But
if you compare the manuscripts, the poems are in different orders. And probably there's loads of versions of this poem. I mean, obviously, there's maybe thousands of versions of this poem that were told in different places at different times. But
yeah,
in this sense, yeah, like you've different you've different what do you call the people that tell stories?
Storytellers.
Different narrative voices, let's say, at different places in the poem. So you can see it's been adapted according to different audiences, according to who it was being told to.
Yeah. And Vilispel is a weird one because it's one of the few we only have, or that we very clearly have like two discrete versions of, because there's Vilispel and there's Vilispel and Skama. And then
there's another version. I mean, you have the three manuscripts as well, essentially. Oh, no, more really, but three manuscript traditions, let's say.
Yeah.
Including Snorri's very different version in some places.
I like that Freya's doing that. This is one of my favorite things that newer video games have been doing, where like the character who is assisting you will yell tooltips at you in combat, specifically based on the last thing you did to fuck up.
Hey.
I was playing through Breath of the Wild semi-recently, and the first time I played it and fought Thunderblight Ganon, I was just getting my ass kicked so much that pretty much the only thing Urbosa was saying to me was, "There is honor in dodging." And it's like, Urbosa, I'm not doing this on purpose.
Oof. Oh yeah, by the way, we just murdered, in the poems as they survive, Nidhogg is immortal. I tend to just read it as like an embodiment of, mortality and the fact that things die. And we just murdered it very badly.
Well, that's thinking with portals.
Maybe the severed head will grow another Nidhogg.
Please don't. I don't want that. So yeah.
He pops up in like this version of hell that might be Christian, might be actually pagan. Yeah. But he's kind of punishing corpses. So there's a lot of murderers and perjurers here running free. Now going, yay!
Yay! Just who we want.
Is it Adam?
All right. What tragic item is going to be at the center of this root ball? I can just feel it.
But yeah, we got. Oh no, I don't know how to feel about the fact that we're just breaking this, because they make Nidhogg out to be relatively sympathetic, being a caretaker of the world, of the roots of the world tree, a mother of the lingworms, and then also, they're, broadly speaking, they try to, like, have reasons why they're making the changes they do, and then they're like, we need another boss fight here. Let's just kill one of the major primordial forces of, like, the world.
Yeah, and Freya immediately shows everybody why he was important by destroying stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know this is the end of the Norse world, but I don't know that I fully understand that change. And yeah, the roots we now pulled an Alexander the Great, sliced through the Gordian knot of the roots of the world tree, and Freya is better now. Hooray.
It's over.
Apparently they do talk about this, so check Nidhogg's codex entry when we can. Okay. Tragic. First we have to decide whether Freya's going to murder us or not.
Kratos is like, I'll just be over here.
My axe is ready, if we're going to do it.
Did they explain in God of War why Nidhogg shows up in Final Fantasy so much? Is that canon?
I wish. God. I desperately want to find research and, like, see if there's been any research into just what texts are actually available in like, mid-90s Japanese translations. Because I've not been able to find it yet, probably because I can't read Japanese, but there's not that many, it seems, and having access to that, I think, will go a long way to explaining JRPGs. just in general.
Yeah. And the spellings, probably. Too. There's some really good scholars of Old Norse, but especially Old Norse linguistics in Japan, actually. It's one of the other places where it isn't maybe part of, it's a bit cut off from the European and American systems a little bit. They do good work.
They do. And we
Maybe
are
they could
talking
explain
over
it.
a very emotional moment.
I'm really impressed by the facial animation that they've reached in this game. It's not quite past the uncanny valley. The eye tracking still feels a little bit weird, but you can read exactly what expression they're trying to communicate with her, and that's what's most important.
Yeah.
I took Freya's choice to like always be staring into the middle distance in this game as intentional, because she's got a distant stare that no other characters really have, that I think plays well with how they've characterized her up to this point.
Yeah, no, she does. It's just as a consequence of that acting choice, it kind of looks like she can't see. Like she's pulling a Matt Murdock. Like this is one of the most fundamental signs of animation struggling a little bit. Is the eyes don't lock onto an object, they lock into a direction, which is not at all how real human eyes work. It's actively difficult to move your head without tracking your eyes on something. But it's much harder to animate a figure where the eyes will always be looking in the right place without it getting weird for other reasons. So like some early, very primitive animation clearly just kind of locks the eyes in a direction and then does their best.
Yeah.
But I like that they're having this bro moment.
It reminds me of like the David Cage games or L.A. Noire or something, and just how much better this is.
Yeah.
Those games were like facial expressions were fundamental to understanding the game, but they didn't work because the technology.
Yep. Very much so. The thing that I also liked in this particular scene, animation-wise, is that Kratos has like an absolutely incredibly craggy face, like 98% of the time.
Yeah.
And they actually made him like relatively, I guess soft isn't that the right word, but right, you could see that like there's a lot. It's a lot less harsh in that particular scene when he's looking at Freya and seeing himself. In that it's like really, really well animated, and big fans of that. Anyway, we were told that we have Primordial? No. Monster? Still no. Somewhere in here, there is supposed to be Needhugger. There we go. Do you not know why a creature such as this would be so devoted to guarding the roots of a tree, but she gave her life in their defense? Odin exploited Needhugger's purpose, protecting the roots of the World Tree to guard the curse he placed upon Freya. To use an otherwise innocent being's nature to lead to destruction is a vile practice. I do not regret slaying Needhugger, but how many others are in the unwitting service of Odin? How many more will lie dead because of it? So, they are at least acknowledging that Needhugger is unaligned, but that still doesn't really explain what are the consequences of us just fully breaking Norse mythology as it survives.
I like Kratos' new, slightly more angsty approach to combat. I mean, being motivated by pure, blinding, world-destroying rage was good for the first 3 games. But I like that now he's like, it is a tragedy that so many innocents must die. Murder, murder, tear, death, murder. Anyway, it's a tragedy.
Look, trolls are fine to murder because, yeah.
They're ugly and gross.
We've got to warn...
I can help with the vines.
We'll get a couple troll fights. Oh, that's not the right one. But we do get a couple of troll fights later, and he says, oh, it's good warm-up. It's a good way to stay warm with how cold it is. So he fully doesn't care about trolls.
God, that's funny.
But he's angsty some of the time.
Leaving the responsibilities of leadership to me.
Honestly, though, what could be a more Icelandic thing than just murdering trolls? We're on board with it. Okay. Let's get... I think we are coming close to time for this stream, but let's get back to Freya first, finish up this little story section.
Yeah.
And then I think that'll be where we end up calling it.
I love that Chad is just discussing the minutiae of face animation and
Yes.
how it works. There's a reason
Obviously,
why
I'm
some people.
disappointed.
Hmm?
We have to see Freyr again. Disappointed we have to see Freyr again. He's one of the good gods. That's fine.
He might be okay in this one. You know,
Yeah.
they seem to be putting him in like a kind of positive framing.
Yeah, no, Frey is a friend, and therefore Freyr is a friend, probably.
Well, Freya is not actively murdering us right now.
We consider Freya a friend. I don't know that Freya considers us a friend, but we consider Freya a friend.
That's true. I feel like Kratos has very low standards for people he considers friends. Like,
People not actively trying to murder him.
well, putting up with Kratos is already such a tall barrier to entry that pretty much anybody who like holds civil conversation with him, he's like, ah, okay, cool.
It does seem like a jerk. A little
Yeah.
bit. I'm sorry. Maybe that's my nitpick for the game, is that he kind of seems like a bad father and a bit of a jerk.
Yeah, he
Kratos?
is both of those things.
Yeah,
No,
that's not a hot take.
I mean,
Kratos knows this about himself.
so God of War 2018 explained his presence, given that Atreus, his son, is Loki. Explained that by saying that he's, in Old Norse, his name is Farbauti.
Yeah.
And all evidence suggests that Farbauti was a jerk.
Well, we got nothing except his name, Cruel Striker.
There's not
Yeah,
much going on.
we have like mentions of like Bileistur, right, some potential siblings maybe to Loki. They don't seem to be doing particularly hard either.
Classic.
One of my favorite bits of research is the people trying to connect Loife, the name, with Farbauti, the name. And it's like, well, Loife seems like leaf. And Farbauti probably means lightning.
Yeah.
And lightnings hit leaves.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah,
maybe this is a bit mean of me. It's probably good. It's probably a good argument going on there, but
Exactly.
it seems a joke.
I think
Well,
that's
you
how.
see,
I think that's how. Like
it-
Jakob Grimm justifies. Oh, Loki's a fire god, cause
It sounds like Logi.
Yeah.
it sounds like Loki, but also fire. Right, 1 + 2 equals 3 question mark.
Well, you see, lightning has nitrogen fixing properties when it strikes soil, so it makes the plants grow better. Here's how
Wow.
Laufey Favorite could still win.
Science really was pretty impressive back then, wasn't it?
Oh,
I didn't know
yeah.
they knew so much. It's very impressive.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, they didn't invent the periodic
Oh.
table for another like 1,000 years, but they knew what a nitrogen fixer was. Oh no!
Well-programmed
pretty
game,
bad.
0 bugs.
Did the disc eject or did it crash?
It crashed.
Oh, it crashed. Wow.
It just fully crashed. Don't worry. Luckily, it has a generous autosave feature, so we only lost a little bit of progress. It's fine.
Can I say I love the people in chat calling me Dr. Taggart. That's very kind. Only my friends call me Dr. Taggart. But yeah, if somebody wants to know, do people ever choose Jötnar for their favorite god or best friend in the sources? And if not, would it make sense to do so? I can't speak in some of the saga stuff. Adam could probably talk about in terms of helpful giantesses and the trolls who like father children and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. The question of whether Jotnar's daughters are technically the same as
Yeah,
Jotnar
it's true.
is a little.
I mean, the
know
gods
what.
are also kind of Jötnar a little bit.
Mhm.
So, some of them have Jötnar parentage.
Yeah.
Which makes it interesting.
Yeah. The only, literally only case I can think of where it's truly potentially like a religious best friend is at least partially explicitly a Risi, is Bárðar Saga.
I mean, he's called the Aus of.
Yeah, he's
Snæfell.
Snæfellsás. So he's the god of the peninsula of Snæfellsnes.
By the way, can I put a shout out, I guess, for Bárðar
100%,
Saga as
yeah.
the greatest of all of the sagas?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
If you want to read one and it's just you want one's got a bit of everything in it, it's a
Great.
beautiful
Heck
piece of
yeah.
work.
I mean, I always do Krokoraf Saga for that, but Bárðar Saga is also a good shout.
Yeah, he's a super weird character. He starts off as this godlike kind of troll-like figure, does some really bad things to people, and then kind of becomes more and more trollish as the story goes on. So he's basically hiding in a cave. Yeah, no, I can't think of in mythology, the Jötnar are the baddies. There's
Yeah.
a bit in what's it, Harper's Wheel, basically, where I think it is that one where Thor basically admits to committing genocide against the Utner, and he's like, well, we kind of have to do it because you know what immigrants are like. They just take over the place.
Yeah.
You know, we're like when we immigrate to other places. We
Yeah,
get
it's
us.
pretty. I mean, as from the point of view of medieval Scandinavians and the diaspora, it's a bit bit of hypocrisy going on there.
Oh
yeah.
fuck. I think it's in the Thramskvida, where I was looking up specifically references to like where is Asgard described, and at one point I believe in that poem it's like if we don't get Thor's hammer back, there will be Jotnar living in Asgard, and
Yeah,
that's
that's
like
basically
the
it. That's
yeah.
That kind of idea, for sure. And not to get back to my game as much as I mean,
Go
sorry,
back to your game.
But
Literally why you're here.
So I have a really wonderful editor who worked with me in the game, and there's a point in the game where you do meet some Jotnar, and you can help to you can take negative actions against them essentially, but because I do come from the point of view of Thor is essentially committing genocide, my editor suggested kindly that I might offer different choices in that chapter because it wasn't the kind of thing her company would like to be advocating was the genocide of a mythological race, which was a very good point. And, but I think, you know, it's a valid interpretation of mythology at the same time.
Yeah, I think is a super important thing to like keep in mind in our like mythological media is like at the end of the day there kind of is a reason why bad people like Norse mythology so often. And it is the fact that in the mythology they are extremely like xenophobic pro-genocide.
Yeah.
And like
extremely
substantive
warlike, and they very much like killing everybody that isn't like them. So yeah.
And so yeah, right,
I mean,
being cognizant of that
great,
is, yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know scholarship has been pushing back against this for a long time, right? Is it Margaret that has the like Aesirist ideology, or is that Richard Cole, or both?
So I'm not sure. I don't know what.
Right, there's an article by I think it's Margaret Louise Ross that like proposes that all the mythological material is Aesirist. So just explicitly, yeah, like the ideological lens is solidly centering the Aesir. And doesn't necessarily actually reflect the state of the cosmology.
Okay, I mean, I'm not sure about that so much. It's definitely Aesirist, but I question whether there are any other perspectives for the audience of the poems.
Yeah,
I don't know if the audiences would have been sympathetic to a different perspective.
Yeah,
Again, an older argument is that the Jotnar represent older gods who were then displaced, which there's very little evidence for, but it's quite good fun.
Yeah, well, it's tricky because, you know, if you want to, I mentioned this on the last stream, I think, if you want to go looking for it, there are so many god wars, like, just so many wars between different groups of gods and different generations of gods, and it's always fun. It's like, oh, we found a new European religion. Where's the God War? Okay, cool. You know, Aesir, Vanir, Ashura, Deva. We discussed this last time. I won't go into it again. But like, the thing is, if you look at the Jotnar, it's like, yeah, the Aesir Vanir War happened, but the Aesir Jotnar War is happening. Like currently, that's kind of the whole plot of the background of whatever Thor's going off and doing, and you sort of got to wonder, what exactly. It's fun to think about what that might mean, because it would be easy to be like, does this parallel like real world, people going from place to place, bringing their gods with them, going to war with the people there, taking over and saying their gods did the same, or is it something more complicated?
Yeah. Is that somebody who created that story 1,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, or is it us creating that story now?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just very difficult to separate.
Yeah. And. I mean, I am always a fan of saying, hey, be unabashed about when you're creating things for right now, because it's fine, right? This is useful, right? As long as we're not doing serious academic research, TM, it's useful, have fun with it, be unabashed in presenting ahistorical things, because it's...
Be bloody bold and resilient.
It's not the end of the world.
You asked me before about adapting, for adapting something for interactive fiction. I really just see what I'm doing as adapting it for the modern audience, I guess. And because that's what the sagas are, the myths are, they're things that have been reinvented over and over and over and over for generations of Old Norse god worshippers and then Christians who had different politics, different desires, different goals in life, different backgrounds, different environments. And so every time the story got told in an oral environment, probably it was slightly adapted at least. And sometimes the adaptations were huge. You know? So whenever we're adapting them now, it's part of that long process, really.
Yeah.
We're different people from Vikings. We shouldn't pretend we're Vikings because we're not, you know?
It is,
So,
yeah. No, that's one of the most interesting parts of the process of, you know, researching and retelling stories specifically is like, it's sort of like doing a translation, which is, you know, I have to change this to reflect that I am the person who's telling this story. Like, it has to be in a language that I speak, poetry that I understand, you know, I can't not be present in this process. You know, I'm a person, I have biases, but I also have skills, you know? It just feels like when people try to separate that and like create the most sterile like translation they can, it's like, this is a losing battle, man. You can't make art that doesn't look like you made it.
Sorry, I'm standing here awkwardly while fighting because I'm trying to see if they're wearing just Skyrim guard helmets. They look kind of like they're just wearing Skyrim guard helmets.
Do you have the photo mode?
I don't have a photo mode. It has been modded into the game. Yeah, because they just never finish it apparently.
Somebody asked if we wanted to hang out with an Old Norse god, who would we like to chill with? As somebody later on, there's a lot of Scabby fandom here. I don't know why. Scabby's not the most major figure in Old Norse mythology, but she does seem pretty great.
She's pretty cool. I think we said right, Bragi and Idun are like the only ones that don't sound like a terrible idea.
Nah, I'll chill with Thor. Y'all can hang out with your safe boys all you want.
I think I've got a good answer. I'm a researcher. I probably hang out with Luther or somebody really obscure, just so that I can write an article about it later.
That's fair. Yeah. You could get an entire career off of like having dinner with a obscure figure once.
Well, that's so much of this question. Like, you can't then use it to, you know, further time, like research or time travel or whatever. It's like, no, you're just having dinner in like a magical Uchronia where no information you get there can be used anywhere else.
Aw, tragic.
Oh, no.
I mean, it's a shame, but like if you know, it's like, oh, if you had a time machine, what would you do? I'd go back to this one time, and I'd go back to before anyone Christian ever turned up in Ireland, and I'd be like, please, for the love of God, tell me what your pantheon looks like. That would be it.
That's a good call. Yeah, I'm not much of a conversationalist, to be honest. I feel like dinner might get pretty boring pretty quickly with people I don't have much in common with, unless they've also watched, you know, Stargate or whatever.
Hell yeah. Hey,
it'd be fun to ask Loki about his performance in Stargate, I guess.
All right, I'm sold. I think that would be very funny.
Yeah.
On the subject of dinner, I will unfortunately have to run to it right now as we're coming up on the bottom of the hour.
Sounds good.
So I don't know how much longer there is before we find our way out of Vanaheim.
Two more. Well, we're not gonna find our way out of Vanaheim yet, but we're gonna wrap up stream after like 2 or 3 more fights.
Cool.
Okay.
They just have a lot of fights in order for us to get back to the place that we were, and had fewer fights to get to away from in the first place.
That seems like how it is. They let you accomplish your goal, and then you have to like fight your way back for like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I also have food on the way, but it won't be there for a little while, so I can stick around.
Perfect.
I am hungry, so my conversational topics might get a little bit more niche.
Well, thank you, friends, for having me on. It was fun
so
to chat about a lot of cool figures that I know very little about. Not having played ahead, I was like, oh god, what's happening on screen? But also like trying not to focus too hard so I can experience it for myself later.
That's fair.
Yeah. But thanks as always. Declan, was wonderful to meet you. Thanks for some good conversation on the stream today.
Yeah. Very fun.
All right.
And I'll see you all around.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Blue.
Bye.
Oh, ow. I just got body slammed by a guy with a horned helmet. That feels bad.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
I know.
Does he know it's not historically accurate, do you think?
He's trying to make it historically accurate. That's probably his thing. He's the one guy with the horned helmet. He's just annoyed that it never caught on.
It's
Exactly.
Stop trying to make horned helmets happen, Sven.
I mean, have you seen, oh, what is it? The Norwegian, like, Vikings parody? I think they just call it the Northmen.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's pretty funny.
The height of fashion, I think it's gonna really catch on, and everyone's just like, no.
Oh boy.
And let's heal up. Okay. On to the next thing. Please. This way. Okay. Nope, that's just a corner. It looked like a doorway, it was just a corner.
Dang it, game devs.
I know, right?
Is it quite difficult to find your way around in this game?
They have these convenient white paint markers that are supposed to point you in the right direction. But sometimes it still is.
The scenes, the environment is really busy, and the lighting doesn't always make it clear where you're supposed to go. Where directing an audience and player base by like what is lit up is one of the classic game dev hacks to help you along. Like, I think it's Portal 2 where they were so enamored with having actual like I don't know, processing power that the levels got massive, and then they would just be like, here's the one platform you can go on, and here's a spotlight pointed at it so you don't miss it.
Yeah, I remember reading about them really experimenting with like people playing the game a lot before they released it, just to make sure people weren't getting lost. It was
Exactly.
like a big thing Valve were doing. Maybe even with Half-Life 2 before that.
Yeah. Well, especially with like open world-ish games, letting the player know where to go is kind of a huge, consideration. And with linear games too, especially linear games that sort of give you enough wandering around time that you're not constantly being railroaded from point A to point B. Like, you gotta make sure that the players know where to go without getting too frustrated. So it seems like a lot of like game dev beta testing is sort of making that process as minimally frustrating as possible.
Yep. Luckily, we found our way back, so we are now arrived at Freyr's camp.
Hello! Let's go hang out with Freyr.
Exactly.
I'm kind of surprised it crashed on you earlier.
I'm shocked. That's the first time the game has ever crashed on me. So,
yeah.
I'm confused as to why it did. It wasn't doing anything.
Kratos still thinks he can refuse the call of this game, not knowing that Atreus is about 6 steps ahead on the hero's journey story wheel.
Yep. That's okay. We had another name there, Naoth, as another name for Freya. I don't know how well attested that one is, but good on them for having like pet names for each other, I think. Ingvi and Naoth. It's cute.
Oh, like N-A-U, like need.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I don't know in relation to Freya, but it comes up a lot in various mythological contexts.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly what they're going for with that. The name doesn't strike a bell, but they did say it, so I don't know. But yeah, one thing I do love about their portrayal of Freyr here, though, as we've circled back to him, is that he is basically Horny Bard the God in this game. Because they do a really, like, scuffed, bad version of Skirnismal a bit later, right, as Freya and Kratos wander around. That's one thing they'll talk about. And it's just like, oh, Gerður is the one who knows how to travel through realms, and Freyr just kind of chases after her, learns from her, and kind of act in desperation to be like, oh yes, I am as cool as you, please marry me. He accidentally ends up in Alfheim, and that's why Freyr is a Lord of the Elves. But he's truly just like party bro, slightly horny bard, the god. And that feels fair for, if we are accepting Anima Bremen's Friho as Freyr, that feels reasonable.
I like that this argument is so hideously awkward, but
Yeah.
we're just sort of following around Kratos in it, and it's like... people in the background just like, oh boy.
Yeah, they're all like, oh jeez, do we have to be here? Aw.
I don't know if Freyr's acting stands up to Freya's.
His accent's kind of all over the place, I won't lie. Oh.
Aww.
In chat, they're talking about Freyr's teeth a lot, obviously. But it's kind of, I mean, in the original poetry, he gets given Alzheimer as a toothing gift.
Hey, yeah.
So, there you go. It's canon.
Smart. If you're gonna get Turbo Heaven as a gift, you better have the good teeth to back it up.
Yeah.
I really hope that Kratos is just like leaning against the wall, like family truly is the greatest treasure of all. Aw, there it is. Hug it out, kiddos.
Aw.
Did you just have a big discussion of tattoos?
Yeah, oh boy, there's so much to say. This game loves its tattoos.
Everybody loves tattoos.
Yeah.
That's not true. My mom doesn't love tattoos.
My mom doesn't either.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I am thoroughly in the camp of they don't have tattoos in the Viking Age. So, but I've accepted that you're never going to escape them in Viking media. So
I put tattoos in my gym. I was like,
look so cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like a way of giving people ownership over their character. You know. It's kind of cool.
And I mean, it's another point of it being, contemporary and useful for the present. That right, tattooing cultures. Right, I don't think Ibn Fadlan is describing tattoos. I don't think we have evidence of tattoos. We do have evidence of other body modification, though, right? We have the filed teeth, and probably then painted teeth as well. And so body modification's a thing, and the contemporary body mod is tattoos. So that's fine.
All the ways to fuck up your body, filing your teeth is like the worst one you could do.
It sounds so sore. I asked the dentist about it because I was really curious.
Yeah.
It's these marks that run along here, and I don't think they've found that many of them. They're little lines that run across the front of the teeth. But the dentist was like, nah, it probably doesn't hurt that much. It's probably fine.
That's like when they make them pointy or something, it's like, no.
Oh yeah, no. These are just like horizontal lines that we speculate they've got like painted red, so when you smile, it's just something horrible.
Yikes.
Yeah. Sure.
It's bad. Okay. Yeah.
I think Viking tattoos show up basically because there's hints of it in Ibn Fadlan's text about the Rus in the East, and people think tattoos are cool. Although there is a scholar called Matthias Nordvig. He's quite a good scholar as well. He's a good scholar. Does really good cool stuff about volcanoes.
Exactly. Love his stuff on volcanoes.
And he'd be pro tattoo in the Viking.
Yeah. Real quick, there's a person in chat who mentioned that the Vinland Saga anime surprisingly doesn't have tattoos. I'll say that's not surprising because there's nothing worse than trying to consistently animate a complicated tattoo design on a human figure. Unless it's a 3D model and you never have to redraw the damn thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. That is a very good point.
Well, it's the same reason why you don't get a lot of patterned clothing on animated characters unless it's the specific kind of animation where it's like the pattern basically stays static in a way that makes absolutely no sense from a physics or reality perspective, but like just kind of slides over them as they move, because then it's just basically a layer on the cell. Anyway,
I think that's about where we will wrap up for the stream, because we have hit the last story beat, and unless if we want to try and really rush Ausgarder, I don't think we want to rush Ausgarder.
I mean, I gotta eat food anyway.
Exactly.
So I won't be tapped in for the Asgard fight at this point.
I think we will save that for a future time. So yeah, as we're wrapping up here, do you have what's been your impression of the game for the chunk you've seen of Vanaheim and a tiny bit of Jotunheim?
I really liked this part.
Yeah, I do too.
I'm really impressed by the game, to be honest. I think it's it's really interesting what they do with Old Norse mythology from my perspective. But it just looks fun. It looks like it is a really good like beat 'em up essentially.
Yeah.
Mechanically, it is extremely fun. It's not my game of the year, but it is my number 2 game of the year.
From a character standpoint, I love that they let Kratos and Freya just talk to each other. And I think not having Atreus with you for this arc is really important for that, because Kratos will not do anything around Atreus willingly that would, he thinks, be bad for him. And talking about his past clearly counts. So Atreus can't be here if Kratos is supposed to open up. And I really like how they sort of handled that.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, once again, chat, Choice of the Viking releases this coming Thursday, December 15th on Steam. You can type !guest in order to get a link to the Steam page. Go forth and wishlist that. It actually helps a lot with the publishers to know that you're interested, and keep an eye on that for when it comes out in the next few days.
I think it will be out in other places as well. I think it'll be on the Google Play Store, for example, and on the publisher's own webpage.
Fantastic.
Heck yeah.
Probably the Apple Store as well, I think, actually.
Perfect. So it's releasing PC and mobile?
Yeah, I think so. They normally do.
Perfect.
Thanks very much for the plug. That was really kind of you.
No problem. But yeah, back to housekeeping stuff as we finish up. Again, if you like this, do make sure you follow the stream here as well and consider subscribing to the channel. Additionally, right, I am once again reminding you that this is the last God of War stream with a guest in 2022. We'll see if we can maybe organize something over the holiday break, but everyone's traveling. We'll see. But we will be back January of 2023, so just a couple weeks, with a brand new set of guests, continuing on with this a whole lot of game left to get through. So we'll be coming back in January, so don't go too far away. And obviously I stream other stuff. I'll be streaming consistently Pentiment, other games as well. So if you want to hear more of me, do consider coming and hanging out on future streams as well. But yeah, thank you all so much for coming. Until next time, stay well, happy holidays, regardless of what you celebrate. Don't get eaten by Grilla.
Yeah!
Right? Yeah! Bye-bye!
Bye, thanks, Jack. Lovely to meet you all. Bye.